Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the 10th episode of the story, and a chance meeting leads Naruto Uzumaki to learn Genjutsu. Sure, he lacks talent, but once Naruto sets his mind to something, he will never give up until he completes it, and Naruto will not stop until he is a master of Genjutsu. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Now let's begin. Naruto's smile was palpable as he passed through the gates of his village. It took him over a week to reach his home from Tenzaku. Tsunade made a comeback as well. Occasionally, he believed she would overlook their bet, but she continued to support them. His mastery of the Rasengan had resulted in a change in her behavior. She wasn't as cynical when they first met, but not too much. During their return to the village, he had gained more knowledge about Tsunade. It appears that she was unlucky in her gambling endeavors. His ability to win games of chance, such as slot machines and Han, was particularly remarkable, given his good luck. Regrettably, his luck wasn't as significant in card games. He was far less skilled than Tsunade. Despite learning the rules and techniques from Shizune, his condition remained poor. Tsunade was the only one who could beat her, even though she wasn't a bad teacher. Comparing the two matches, it's like taking on Shikamaru in Shiki. He could win against an inexperienced player or one who was not good, but when facing a professional. Naruto. He shook his head in an effortless manner. The voice was so loud that it disturbed his train of thought. Tsunade, who was standing a few paces ahead of him with "What the hell is that?" The voice had been shouted by her. The older gentleman joins in and allows you to indulge in your own imagination. That's the aspect that defined her. He sensed that she was still shedding tears for winning their wager. Although she stopped calling him a child or brat, her aggression persisted without any justification. "Yeah, right," Naruto replied. "Good," she exclaimed, before proceeding. Jiraiya's sole expression was a smile before he met up with Tsunade and started talking to her. He looked around the guardhouse and frowned when he realized that the Chunin stationed were not Kotetsu or Izumoshi, but rather something else. Despite his inability to hear the voices of the Chunin, the girl continued to argue with him while they were working there. He felt a warm hand grasping his shoulder and looked up at Shizune. "Are you prepared?" He checked with his sensor and found that Tsunade and Jiraiya were not far away. It didn't take long for him to catch up with them. "Yeah." He smirked. "Thanks for your patience." Shizune greeted with a smile. "It's not a concern here." He said, "We were about to leave, but then suddenly we heard the girl from earlier." "Naruto," she remarked. The familiar voice's sound caused him to come to a halt. Shizune pressed his shoulder again and asked, "Ten, what's your name?" "I'll leave you alone, too. Waiting for Lady Tsunade to come around is not advisable." He said, "I am against it." Before she left, Shizune smiled at him while Taunton was positioned beside her. Her kindness and presence always prevented him from having conflicts with Tsunade. Like an older sibling. He then shifted his gaze to Ten, who was almost unrecognizable. She had her hair braided instead of in buns and her shirt was dark blue, not bright pink. The new appearance was unsettling, resembling the time when he began wearing his gray outfit, as well as being unexpected to his colleagues. He asked, "What's with the makeover?" out of curiosity, disregarding the manners taught by Kurenai and Yoshino. Prior to initiating the conversation, he was taught to greet first. The braid was held out by Ten. The object's length was moderate, with a protrusion that extended to the center of her back. "Just wanted to give something a try and see what it had in store for me. It's been a while since I last saw you. I had a few trips that I went on." She said, "It's good to hear." She shaved her head and wrapped her hand around her elbow. "I was on the lookout for you, actually." At Tenton's point, "Why?" she asked with a smile that illuminated her entire face. "I wanted to acknowledge your words of goodwill towards Temari, which you expressed with me as a way of thanking me. I haven't had anyone come to my defense before. I mean, apart from Lee or Guy-sensei. It was a very pleasant experience. Naruto's expression was one of smile, with him rubbing his head against the back of his mouth. That's all right, you can come here. After nodding, Tenten looked at him for a longer time than he would have liked. Her gaze was so eerily perplexing it made him feel uneasy. She regained consciousness after shaking her head. Naruto's heart raced as he said, "Can you believe it? We're friends, don't you think so? We've got a platonic friendship." Tenten gave him a wink, which made him feel at ease. "Just friends, that's all I can say," he replied. Tenten smiled again, but this time it wasn't the same as her last smile. "Thanks, Naruto," she said, turning her back on the character. She hesitated for a moment before turning her gaze to him over her shoulder. Naruto inquired if the blonde woman in your group was Lady Tsunade when you arrived. No, she replied. Tenten sounded. "Thanks to all of you." She hurried back to the guardhouse and began conversing with the Chunin as she was promoted. Naruto's head trembled as he focused on the task at hand. Despite Tenten's pleasant disposition, she was already in a relationship. He wouldn't trade her for anyone in the world. Within a short time, Naruto was able to catch up with his group due to their combination of speed, running on the rooftops, and straightening up the path leading to the building where the Hokage's office was located. Naturally, there were some unexpected twists, but when his group was within touching distance, he used a body flicker to return to the foreground. "Agreed to join us, have you?" Tsunade asked. She had a grimace in her eyes. It was a perfect opportunity. She made a valid point, saying that they were almost there. Naruto was on time, Shizune declared, hugging Taunton in her arms. Tsunade hummed her voice and then shrugged off her shoulders. Fine. Naruto's actions were his fault, and therefore, I wasn't wasting my time on him. She simply teasingly began, and it became apparent that she was no longer interested in making fun of him after he ignored the jab. He followed her and Shizune up the stairs, while Jiraiya walked with him. He smiled and said, "Shizune told me that you were talking to a girl." "What do you mean, Tenten?" he inquired, his face with a big smile growing. "The girl you addressed during the tournament is that girl," Naruto said with a wide smile, not liking Jiraiya's apparent interest in the conversation. "Yeah. I'm surprised you thought it would be significant." Jiraiya chuckled. "When you said, you thought I would forget about you? It made me think, in a way, that you were the perfect teacher for the job." Naruto's gaze widened, as praise flowed out of his mouth. "Thanks, a lot," I replied. Jiraiya gave him a smile. She said, "I thought you were going to be a one-woman team and not on the field." "I am aware of it, for the most part." Naruto smirked. Jiraiya's perverted sense of humor returned, and the positive vibe he received from being praised went away. "Pervy sage, she's just a friend to me." Jiraiya gave a handshake to his left shoulder and held onto him, even as Naruto tried to free him. "You're right, but she could be a little shy. Picture yourself attempting to approach someone who made such a strong defense of you." He shattered his fingers. "You neglected to disclose her physical appearance. The crazy ones are not something you want to be involved in." Naruto let out a growl while breathing. He chose not to comment on Tenten's appearance. It would only worsen the situation. I said something and she thanked me for it. She didn't have a romantic interest in me. Jiraiya regained his composure and shook his head in frustration. "Maybe she was just," Jiraiya suggested, remarking, "she didn't seem to be playing hard to get, flirting with me, or doing anything." "Okay, Naruto, I'm okay with this." At that point in time, Tsunade looked back. "I informed you, Jiraiya." Naruto's inability to tolerate jokes is the reason why he remains angry. "What's the subject of your inquiry?" I'm presenting to my apprentice some crucial pointers. It's a good point. Naruto yelled, "Oh, don't do it," by throwing his hand out of the air. He was unable to use his other hand due to it being stuck between him and Jiraiya. "Don't worry, Naruto," Jiraiya smiled at him. "Even if you don't have the one, there will always be someone out there waiting for you." "Is it possible to speak from experience?" Tsunade inquired. Jiraiya chuckled, but didn't offer any other explanation. He released Naruto, who had finally reached the Hokage's office, and opened the door. Latin women were the first priority, he declared. Tsunade was the first to emerge, with Shizune following closely behind and thanking him for his contribution. Upon entering, Naruto found the Hokage sitting at his desk and reading a scroll. With a smile on his face, he put the scroll down after Jiraiya closed the door. "Tsunade. I'm glad to see you back." In the same way, Tsunade retorted, beaming with a smile. "Shizune, you have experienced a significant increase in size." Shizune smiled and asked how you are doing. "Very well, Lord Hokage." The Hokage nodded as he spoke. "It's a good thing to hear. The debriefing can now commence in earnest." The Hokage had already secured privacy seals, recapped the mission, and informed Naruto that he would receive payment for a B-rank mission. Naruto's revelation that he had learned how to use the Rasengan left the Hokage in disbelief and amazement, but overall, their meeting was uneventful. According to Tsunade, he would visit Niji if that were the case. "I have a significant topic of discussion with you, and I wanted to do it in private," the Hokage replied. Tsunade chuckled and placed her hand on her hip. "Afterwards, we can carry out that task. I am currently occupied with some work to complete. Let's depart, Shizune." After saying goodbye, she turned and left, with Shizune in the background. Jiraiya stated that it was the right moment to depart. "I'll be back later, Senegade, and I have something to say about you." "Let's be honest, Naruto." Naruto nodded and gave the Hokage a farewell with glee. He was about to leave the office through the door, but he saw Jiraiya jump through an open window and land safely on his feet. Naruto didn't share the same level of humor as the Hokage, who smiled with a laugh. He chose to run out of the door, outside the building, and down the stairs instead of staying behind. He seized Jiraiya's arm and shook it, slightly, when he caught up with him. Jiraiya's actions were deemed impractical as he would either dodge the attacker or drop a toad on him, which could lead to humiliation. Alternatively, it could be worse. Despite his initial concerns, he didn't feel the need to address an earlier problem. "What's the meaning behind your remark about Tsunade, pervy sage?" Jiraiya asked with a smile. "I was educating you on what to do. Did you have a past?" "I did," she said. They walked onto the main road, without any clear direction of their intended location. Naruto inquired, "What is the reason behind it?" "You're too easily affected by your sensitivity. When someone teases you, you take pleasure in teasing them and laughing at the same time. Don't let it bother you, as it often leads to anger." Confused, Naruto said, "I know. Make sure my words don't get lost in your thick skull," Jiraiya said, flicking his forehead. Naruto's ejaculation was reversed. Anko's performance taught him to take jokes seriously, but he only considered it when en route to a destination and had to face rude team members. Despite being aware of Kurenai's existence, you made it very unpleasant by saying something. It's important to maintain a calm demeanor and avoid playing mind games. You're no longer a rookie, so don't be one like them. Naruto chose not to reveal anything. After that, Jiraiya remained silent, but after walking through the village for approximately 60 seconds, he finally stopped and confronted Naruto. "If you were concerned about me slipping, don't be afraid to ask. I am keeping your secret safe from harm." Naruto's smile was small and delicate, piercing the edges of his mouth. "Thanks, sensei." Jiraiya reacted by smiling and applauding him on the shoulder. I know it's a struggle to let go, but the reward is in the rewards. He vanished in a smoke-filled room. Naruto was aware that Jiraiya had been snobbish towards him, but it was something he could handle. He was not fond of being teased by someone he loved, especially when it was done towards him. By following Anko and Jiraiya's guidance, he could achieve his desired outcome. He gazed upwards at the sky. The sun had reached its highest point a few hours earlier, and it was getting late. The timing was perfect for a visit to Kurenai. It was planned that Naruto would get up and fresh air before going to see his girlfriend, but he didn't have to worry about the last part. With her arms crossed, Kurenai was leaning on his door. Her chest swelled outward and inward with even breathing as the sun faded, softening her skin to match the faint sunlight. He stood admiringly and watched her body, so much so that he didn't even know her eyes flickered open, revealing her stunning red eyes. "Welcome back," she said with a lively, melodious tone. A shiver ran down his body. He had not seen Kurenai in a while, and by the time he did, his face was already starting to warm up. "Are you patient for me?" With a smile on her face, she maintained vigilance while looking at him with her lidded eyes and bright red lips. "I couldn't find the words to describe how much I missed you. It's a shame that I can't take it anymore. You are still my favorite person." She stood up straight and embraced him with his head resting on her chest. Her fragrance was euphoric and she had a wonderful warm touch. He desired more, and so he returned the hug, hugging her tightly around the waist. He found it enjoyable to feel Kurenai's hands tucking around his neck and the back of his head, making him feel tingly. He was uncertain about the length of time they stayed together, but it didn't matter much. He and she were the only ones who cared for each other, which was all that mattered. Her arm swung as Kurenai whispered, "Let's go inside." Naruto's voice echoed in his voice, causing him to sob. He didn't want her to be forgotten. "Don't overlook," she urged. An individual could potentially witness the outcome. As usual, she had a valid argument. It is possible for intimate moments to occur within the walls, with no one seeing them in front of them. It would also be a lot warmer. "All right," he declared, slowly relinquishing his hold on her body and enjoying the texture against his own. "I'll be able to retrieve my key for now." After doing that, he opened the door. He looked up at Kurenai, extending his arm outwards. "After you've finished your work, let's get started." "Ah, my God, you are a gentleman," she said cheerfully before entering his flat. Once they were both inside, they removed their sandals. Kurenai's surprise was when he took her hand in his arm. He was infatuated with the texture and warmth of her hand, and he found pleasure in playing with her fingers by noticing how his skin felt against him. While walking towards his couch, Naruto proposed making tea for Kurenai. "No, thank you," she replied. "Nevertheless, I am grateful for the offer." He nodded and expressed some relief, partly because he didn't have to make any sacrifices. Kurenai inquired about the outcome of their mission after sitting on the couch. He was still holding her hand. While Naruto sat on the couch, he made himself at ease. It was a decent experience. "I acquired a new form of jutsu training." After giving a nod to Kurenai, Naruto unleashed the Rasengan and captured her in wonder as his eyes glazed with emotion. "I'm impressed," she remarked after the Rasengan disappeared. How did Naruto come across it? As he smiled and told Kurenai about his discovery of the Rasengan, Jiraiya's quest to find Tsunade, and his bet on the wandering ninja. Occasionally, Kurenai would burst into laughter, especially after Naruto recounted that he had won the bet, but most of all, she was beaming with pride and smiles from her lips. "There you go, there's something very special," she said, squeezing his hand. She appeared to be able to let him play with her hand and even enjoyed herself. The circles she created around his thumb were causing him to experience goosebumps and hair loss on his arm. "I had a great time when I got to know you, Naruto, and I'm glad I did." Naruto's blush was a deep shade of red. I'm also content with my current situation. Kurenai nodded and kissed her lips. Naruto's heart raced as she moved closer to him and tilted her body forward, causing the air surrounding him to burst open. She refrained from kissing him. He had been looking forward to the moment when their lips would meet since he was kissed by her in the hospital. Is that how I said we were going to talk? Despite thinking about it, he believed that Kurenai had lost touch with him due to the way they reconciled. I've been putting in a lot of thought into it. What is our identity? Naruto stooped, his entire body contorted. Have you heard anything about our relationship? We've been dating for more than 2 months, and I'm pleased with the outcome. He said, I am, and so is I. Shortly after, Kurenai giggled, but it wasn't for long. I acknowledge that. You've been away from this task for almost a month. It was a wake-up call because I almost forgot about the fact that our careers could lead to extended periods of separation. Naruto's hand slipped tightly as he breathed a sigh of relief. He had the impression that she was going to say something much more reprehensible, and he was pleased she refrained from doing so. What is the best course of action for us to take now? Kurenai urged, stating that his top priority is to maximize our time. With her other hand, she placed it on his chest and slowly brought it down before finally putting it against his hip, close to his waist. And so it goes. In spite of any obstacle encountered, I will remain your teacher and you will continue to be my student. Keep in mind that. Naruto's eyes were fixed on the blue and red parts, as he stared into them. They were so close that their foreheads could be touched. I refuse to do it. Kurenai conveyed her approval, saying, good, and then she gave him a kiss under his ear. He groaned with satisfaction as she suckered on his skin, the contrast between their hot and cold lips. The loss of contact caused Naruto's eyes to widen, but his concerns were eased when she pressed her mouth against his. Ultimately, after a while, she was ready to kiss him. With his eyes shut, he focused on making Kurenai feel the same way she did. Their kisses became more intense as they continued to make out. His lips split open as he felt Kurenai's tongue lapping against them, and his tongue wrapped around Kurenai's mouth, flicking it around him repeatedly. The tension in the air was unlike anything he had ever encountered before. He was used to feeling Kurenai's body and experiencing his senses going haywire, but this was different. He was feeling euphoric and giddy due to the urge, and when Kurenai moaned, he knew she had it in him. He grabbed her waistband and traced the contours of her hips, while Kurenai followed suit by coiling her arms under his body and rubbing him with any object she could touch. He felt that his exploration of Kurenai's body was progressing upwards as he detected her firm stomach and slim yet shapely sides, approaching her upper chest. He had the sudden desire to touch the dazzling flesh globes for the first time, hoping that Kurenai would experience its ecstasy. His recollection of those lovely breasts only served to tempt him. However, he was not. He didn't want to make Kurenai feel uncomfortable any further than she did. The fear of damaging their relationship by going too far and the dread of Kurenai's breakup were enough to ease his temper and prevent him from trying to fondle his girlfriend. He carried on with the ritual of rubbing and massage Kurenai's sides, lower back, waistline, and hips. He had a desire for this, and now he has it. He was there with Kurenai, and the world didn't seem to move on except for a simple kiss and holding hands and saying, I love you, to her. Naruto rekindled the relationship with Kurenai by reminding her of the close and personal relationship they had developed over a long period. The Hidden Leaf Village's hospital was blown up by a bird that flew high above it. Its heartbeat was unwavering, and it moved with a strong sense of direction, its wings protruding fortitude. Another bird swam not too many miles away, taking a different path. It wasn't as grand as the first bird, though. The animal's feathers were a faded red, dull brown, and sharp talons with weaker heartbeat and movement. Just like the first bird, it had the ability to fly and travel anywhere in the world. Niji had a desire to be like those birds, but he knew that it was pointless. His hands were crippled, but he could still move and speak. The gentle fist had become ineffective for him, and he was unable to eat, write, or clean himself. A multitude of doors were sealed off, leaving behind a large amount of dust in the wind. The situation was made worse by the fact that his other injuries were resolved. His preference would be to handle a broken jaw or his ribs, not this one. Regrettably, it wasn't meant to be. The door was opened, and his nurse came in. "Good afternoon, Niji," he said with a smile. "Mamoru," Niji declared, disarming the Byakugan and directing his gaze towards the dark-haired man. The Hidden Leaf's beige medic uniform was worn by him, who was slim and tall. Mamoru was once a ninja. Despite not being into combat, his fascination with human anatomy fascinated him. Despite never having passed the genitals, he pursued his passion for the medical profession and has been content with his life ever since. Niji was aware of some jobs he could do, but it didn't make any sense to him. It would never be a suitable replacement for his previous lifestyle. Mamoru urged him to engage in his usual healing session by lifting his glasses and saying, "It's time for you to do it." He was one of the few people he had contact with regularly, and indulging in idle conversation was a way to pass time. It prevented him from enduring negativity, which he had become familiar with during his initial stay here. The calming chakra entered Niji's system, and he groaned as it soothed the aching pain in his left hand. Unlike his right hand, where the nerves were dead, the presence of those nerves was still evident. The discomfort varied in intensity, but frequently he felt an irritating heat wave coming from his fingers, along with the spasms felt. A persistent reminder of his failure. "I'm done," Mamoru said, lifting his hands and placing them at his sides. Although he was grateful for the efforts of his fellow nurses and other nurses who attempted to alleviate his pain, it wasn't enough. The complete restoration of his hands would not be adequate. The situation was not meant to occur. His duty was to eliminate Yujito Ni and seek revenge on the Hidden Cloud for forcing his father to sacrifice himself, but he was the one who had to pay the price while she got to walk away. If it wasn't for him, what was the significance of his fate? The only outcome is determined by your own actions. Mamoru's attention was directed towards Niji, he said. He paused to ease his nerves. The thought of what had happened to him made his mood soar, leaving him feeling drained. Despite having learned to control his anger, he was still plagued by episodes of intense indignation. "I offer my sincere apologies. My thoughts were buried in my mind." Mamoru's face lit up as he smiled. "It's not a concern, Niji. After that, I'll come back in a while and acquire new bandages for you." With a nod, Niji put in his hand. He found solace in the fact that he could always use the Byakugan to hide the grim remnants of his former self-expression tools, as the bandages only served to remind him of how much a loss it had been. He gained a greater perspective when he utilized his family's jutsu, which enabled him to disentangle the pain and appreciate the beauty of the world beyond his own. After Mamoru's departure, Tenten entered the scene with Lee and ran towards him. She had a different hairstyle, and Lee was wearing his chnin vest. Lee's promotion as the first team member was still a source of irritation. The fate of an individual was determined by their birth, and while hard work may be valuable, natural talent must still be nurtured. Lee was the chnin, and he was also the cripple. Lee smiled at him and said, "Niji, Nimi." Tenten interrupted Lee's eye contact and proceeded to say, "I have good news for you, lady." Niji asked, "What do you want me to tell you?" With a beaming smile on her face, Tenten stared at him. She said, "Lady Tsunade has returned to the village." "Isn't that awesome?" Niji's heart raced. The world's most skilled healer was present, and there was a possibility that she could cure him. Tenten and Lee were unwavering in their honesty towards him, even though he was close to believing it. A smile streamed from the corner of his mouth. He had been without hope for an extended period. "It is a fact that it is not true." Lee stated that it was a sure thing. I am eagerly anticipating the day when you can leave the hospital. I'm not capable of doing that, Tenten declared, brushing her braid to the side and revealing her neck. She had a pretty nice look, as is usually the case. Niji observed that Li's gaze remained fixed and then turned around to look at him. What was the story behind this? Li said, rubbing his hands off Niji's hand and smiling. It went unnoticed by Niji, who knew that Li didn't feel sorry for him. I witnessed her passing through the village gates myself. I was on gate duty when it happened. Tenten added, I saw Naruto with her and asked him to make sure. Naruto, the story goes on and on. The boy who defeated Hinata was him. The boy was won over by her fear of hurting him, which ultimately led to his satisfaction. Hinata was the epitome of his animosity towards the Hyuga clan. Despite being a kind-hearted individual who avoided the cursed seal on his forehead, him feeling sickened that she was expected to lead the clan with such tenderness and grace. She taunted his father for sacrificing himself as long as she endured. He had expected her to break down when the boy she loved insulted her in front of almost everyone she cared for, but it only boosted her determination. It didn't leave her unharmed, but it only inspired her to strive for greater success. He used to believe that Hinata wasn't destined to be a leader or kunoichi like him, despite her noble birth. Her sister was more likely to follow the path her father had set for her. Based on everything that occurred to him and his observation of her stoicism during her stay here, it could be argued that he was too hasty in his decision-making. It's a matter of time to determine if she lived up to her self-imposed goals. Li shook his lover off the bed and asked, Niji. That was something he used to do regularly in recent times. His teammates were frequently absent, making it unusual to have companions. His initial anger was so intense and smoldering that it caused burnt out in anyone who tried to approach him. It's fine with me. Li exclaimed, thank you, sweet boy, with a beaming smile. Niji used to sneeze at his teammates' positive outlook on life, feeling that it would never be worth anything. Li was the one who managed to master the forbidden technique he didn't learn and was promoted. He stated that he went beyond his limits during his fight with Yujito, all to secure his life and seek revenge for his loss. Niji expressed gratitude to Li, stating that, thank you. Thank you both, a lot for your help in my journey. Li gave him a thumbs up. It is not a concern, Niji. It's not the teammates' concern, is it? Tenten questioned, patting him on the shoulder. Niji's expression was one of pure happiness, as he smiled. Witnessing Tsunade in person was a bit hair-raising. Although she was beautiful, he found it to be as delightful as a portrait of secluded terrain. Ignoring the existence of a woman of her own kind would be unwise. Establish a proper calibration. This was a philosophy that Niji applied to his life, as he knew at the age of 20 what could and did with risks associated with having sex. With death in sight, the time had come for a man to develop feelings for his girlfriend was better spent on developing his own self-esteem. Nonetheless, that wasn't the cause of its menacing appearance. Tsunade smiled and said, so you're Niji Hyuga. She was holding a clipboard to her full-figured chest. I'm pleased to have finally met you, it's been a great experience. I've heard a lot of things about you. Niji breathed deeply. The news of that was unexpected. It's the same for me as well. My teammate has a great fondness for you, and she's shared with me numerous times about your achievements. Is Tenten not your teammate? Yes, of course, but she's definitely one. Tsunade's laughter was palpable. She said, I met her in the lobby and she just started talking about you. She's a charming lady. Excitingly enough to make one feel at home. He said, it is likely that Tenten would be very happy to meet one of her idols. The throbbing pain returned, and he grunted while closing his eyes. Upon opening them, he observed Tsunade's mouth being concealed in a thin line. Let's commence with the main objective. Take a deep breath and don't move your body. After he emerged, she started working. Chakra was swarmed from her palm and she placed it on his forehead. She closed her eyes for a few seconds while performing the diagnostic jutsu. The greenness dissipated and she resorted to reading the clipboard again after opening her eyes. It's exactly what I expected. What's the subject of your conversation? Tsunade scowled, reminiscent of the expression one used to receive when given bad news. His final glimpse of it occurred when he was informed of his father's passing. Sorry, I can't say it. The ninja world doesn't offer you any prospects. Niji's brow furrowed. He would have clasped his fist if he had the chance. What did you tell me? Tsunade's expression remained unaltered. I say, let me enlighten you. Normally, it takes several months for the healing process of your left hand to finish, and this may involve rehabilitation. Your right hand is a lost cause. Niji's eyes were burned and his face was heated, resulting in blood in his veins. This was not a likely scenario. I know you're supposed to be the greatest healer. Why did you come here if you couldn't do anything about it? All she did was sit on his bed and look him in the eye, not bothering to answer. He could see the truth in a saying like this when he saw Tsunade's spirit, as it was said that the eyes were the portal to the soul. Without her desire to assist him, she wouldn't be present. You may be able to recover entirely, she stated. If I were to assist you, then that is the way to go. Nevertheless, there is a high likelihood that the surgery will not be successful. If it happens, then there's nothing left for me to do. His cheeks were filled with fiery tears. It appeared to be a deception to think that he could hope, but it was futile. Tsunade remained in that place, staring at him with a blank stare. He wiped his face to prevent her from seeing him crying. He felt a sharp pain as it was projected onto his arm and then gritted his teeth while exhaling. How could he have forgotten so easily? Tsunade's touch settled on his cheek, and soon after, his face was free of tears. His loss of composure didn't seem to bother her at all. Niji expressed gratitude by saying, "Thank you." Tsunade's face lit up with a smile. "I hope you won't suffer, Niji. However, I am not willing to deceive you. Better than that, you owe it. I am aware of the fact that I acknowledge it. At this point, is it not a big deal? It could be the most significant choice you ever make." Over a prolonged period, Niji was convinced that his ultimate goal was to win and become the winner. He was the Rookie of the Year, a genius despite being enslaved, who recreated the main branch's unique methods through sheer ingenuity. He was confident in his abilities and believed that no one would ever be able to overcome any obstacle. The outcome of his victory was as certain as the sun's rising in the east. He no longer had that level of assurance. The possibility of the surgery failing was too high to risk his future by putting his life on the line. It could be that he becomes a ninja once more if the plan was successful, or it may have failed. He was uncertain if he would be able to handle the pain of losing his newly restored hope or facing the disappointment of failing in life. At the same time, he was only interested in using his hands again. The risk was worth it if the surgery proved successful, and he believed that the regret from not choosing would be permanent. His decision to go for a walk and unwind and clear his mind was fruitless, as it didn't aid him in any way. He was far from deciding on his next move, and the decision persisted in his mind, overpowering any resolve. Niji Haiga was unsure of his life's path for the first time. He recognized the voice and turned around, saying, "Niji." With a beaming smile, Guy approached him and asked, "Guy-sensei?" Niji surveyed the surroundings. This was the first meeting of their genin squad as well, which occurred over a year ago. It appeared almost appropriate that he would come here, as his future was at stake. He stopped in front of him and asked, "What's your plan?" "I was curious to see how you were doing, and I wanted to gauge yours." With a frown, Niji looked back at his hands. He breathed deeply. Perhaps it was the right moment to allow someone he could trust to hear his thoughts. I've always believed that people's fate was predetermined at birth, but I can't fathom why I ended up permanently crippled despite my own belief. I was born in my clan's branch family. I rebelled against a soft girl and the fate that landed me in her hands. Was it revenge on the hidden cloud for taking away my father from me, and tried to kill people just because they were there? He let out tears over all the anguish he had kept hidden. If it was a matter of fate, it could have been more acceptable to accept. The fact that my father made a conscious decision to protect his family and the village is transformative. Is there a way for me to follow in his footsteps if he defies destiny? Could it lead to the same conviction that my father acquired as Gai-sensei? I question this because I am afraid of losing myself in the process, which was meant for him before. To my fear, I am unable to make the appropriate decisions. Niji raised his head and turned towards his sensei. His shoulders were shivering and his face was wet with new tears, but he didn't care if his vulnerability was revealed at this moment. Please, Gai-sensei. Can you provide me with some insight on this? The tension between Gai's eyes and face was evident. Upon opening them, they held the belief he always saw. The conviction that made him proud no matter how foolish he looked. It's not uncommon to come across similar situations to what happened to me when you were younger, as it is now much more apparent. Despite his martial arts training, my father was considered a failure due to his lack of experience in ninjutsu and genji. Lee's father is a source of pride for us, as his shortcomings never let him fall short. He taught me all the values he loved and still love. Despite my attempts to defend him, I only comprehended his message after his passing. He could have easily accepted the fate that the other villagers had bestowed upon him, but he didn't want to surrender. He opted to keep fighting and train as a means of safeguarding his personal belongings. He resorted to killing himself to save me and my group from the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Hidden Mist. Niji's gaze blinked, neglecting the tears that ran across his face and dried up on his cheeks, leaving behind tracks of blood. How did my father manage to open all 8 celestial gates, a feat that took him 2 decades to master? If he had not believed in the power to shape his own fate, it would have been impossible for him to do that. Create your own destiny, Niji. You are the master of your own destiny. The words written by his father had a lasting impact on him, beyond the moment when his uncle lay prostrate before him and begs for forgiveness, while also being aware that his attempt to seek revenge was futile. He believed that it was unattainable for the longest period, but it wasn't until a later time that he could do what his father had done. The evidence was everywhere, but he had been too consumed by his own frustration to appreciate it. I acknowledge the statement. If you are convinced, then you can take control of your destiny. Does that make sense? Guy smiled and gave him a thumbs up. You're got it, she said. That's why you have to decide. Losing your purpose in life would cause much greater suffering than what you are currently facing. If you had not taken the first step towards achieving your desired goal, the pain would be much more severe. If our careers were not providing us with a purpose, we would never be alive. Come in, Niji, and take care of yourself. Your destiny is inherently personal, and you are the same way you and your father were a part of it. Do you subscribe to that statement? Niji, you have fought hard and put in more effort than almost anyone I've ever met. I am completely confident that the surgery will be successful, but regardless of the outcome, I will remain your steadfast companion. The smile on Niji's face was unmistakable. Thanks, Gai-sensei. I have come to terms with the fact that. He admitted to having some doubts, but the future appeared brighter now, and the indecisiveness that had troubled him was starting to dissipate. The smile of Guy brightened his day. It's a relief for me to hear that. Let's go, folks. After nodding, Niji got up and stood up. His attention was drawn to the screeching of a bird, which reminded him of his previous birdwatching experiences and his desire to be free like those birds. He realized that his desire was not a fruitless one. The scorching sun's orange hue lit up the sky, but Naruto did not succumb to the heat. A never-ending desert stretched towards his feet, bending to his will. Despite his efforts to contact him, Kurenai fell and collided with the ground, ultimately consuming dust. Her face was tarnished by a scowl as she stood on her shaky limbs, but Naruto had opened up the space between them. It was time to put an end to the fight once and for all, as he had taken control of the battlefield. The blade was wielded by Naruto, who then let a gust of wind whip through it and forcefully struck his adversary. With a calm expression, Kurenai asked, "Is that what's going on?" Her voice echoed in his ears as if she was whispering in them. He assumed he had already taken care of that. The ringing voice faded as I took a deep breath. "I'm starting off at a new level." The clone dived towards Kurenai, cutting off its teeth with its sword, but ultimately met with an accident. A second clone emerged from the close proximity of the dune, cutting off the same path as the previous one, but it was also unable to avoid trapping dust and creating a dust cloud. Naruto's level of worry was not excessive. Each time a clone dispersed, another would take its place, swinging its unique blade in an overhead arc. Due to the unrelenting pressure and the shifting terrain, Kurenai struggled to hold off Naruto's clones. The moment she messed up, Naruto would hit him directly. "Naruto," Kurenai said, "I know you're not bad, but I did." She twisted her shoulders and avoided one clone, crouched to the side to avoid another, and buoyed up to prevent a third reoccurrence. A kunai was flicking in her hand. "Your clones are beyond reason, so be it." Kurenai's feet dropped to her feet, her arms contorted like windmills. She steadied herself, but she couldn't stop Naruto from gnawing on her stomach. Her innards were drenched with blood, which then scattered onto the bright crimson sand. "You've got me," Kurenai declared, with blood streaming out of her mouth. All of a sudden, her eyes began to glow. "Or did you?" Kurenai sprang into action, weaving in an infinite amount of vines and seizing Naruto with the most ungainly knot. They went straight for the blazing sun before he could even respond. His ears popped, and his entire body felt as though his veins and organs were racing towards the sky. Subsequently, he abruptly ceased to move. Rather than being crushed by the force of air pressure, Naruto hung hundreds of meters above the desert, his ribcage rattling and falling down. He breathed deeply, and then the vines twisted, pressing his limbs against a thick tree. Kurenai's back was pressed against his body by a sharp steel sword, which caused him to experience pain in the throat. Naruto asked, "Stay with me," and he replied, tilting his head to allow her to hear. Despite the lack of blood drawn by the kunai, Kurenai's would cut his throat if they made a bad move. She lacked any facial expression, instead appearing to be determined and unyielding. Without any flaws, her only expression was her squinting. No matter what, Kurenai never looked squirmed. With a sharp smile, Naruto declared, "No, never." He lit up the tree with a fiery red light, his skin burning brightly like the orange sun, and his eyes glowing. His body was bound together by vines that merged and transformed into orange-colored tails, with fur growing where the fire melted his skin. The force of this transformation was enough to break Naruto's illusion of reality. The bright blue sky pierced by sunlight, and green grass sprouted from the desert underbrush. Kurenai was located in the center of their training location, which was the concealed waterfall that they first encountered. She had ruby-red eyes that popped out of her sockets, and her breath was heavy and hard to breathe. Even if it was just an act, she'd take a moment to recuperate. She experienced the sensation of her skin peeling off as she approached the nine-tailed fox in its fiery rage. He lowered Kurenai to her knees, secured her arms behind her back, and put his kunai's tip against her jugular vein. "I'm sending you a message," Naruto said. The edges of his mouth trembled from the sound of anticipation. The teacher's chakra vibrated, once more. She ceased her struggles after a while. "I want to extend my utmost congratulations." Naruto shifted his focus from fighting to supporting Kurenai and pulling him out of the way. His smile was the most significant, and Kurenai also had a smile on his face. He spent the previous month refining his current illusions, developing new ones, and broadening a better understanding of Genjutsu in general. In the past, he would be lucky to keep Kurenai interested for just 1 second, but now, it would take her that much time to clear his weakest illusion, giving him plenty of time in the bank to land a killing blow. Kurenai conveyed to Naruto that he should feel proud of his achievement, saying, "I think you're doing a good job. As Genjutsu, you have become my equal chance after defeating me." "Do you share the same level of expertise?" he inquired. Given that Kurenai had been a master in Genjutsu for over 10 years, how could he have become the equivalent of her after only 5 months of training? With his eyebrow raised, Naruto looked as sharp as he could. "Is it accurate to say that you can be examined by a different Genjutsu master, with 2 other shinobi who are skilled in the art acting as witnesses? It's a valid tactic in and of itself, but I think that would only serve to legitimize your advantage over me." He trembled and nodded his head. "I assumed that's what I had to do." Genjutsu is not the same as ninju or taiju, but she acknowledges that it requires some effort and patience to master both, she said with a kind heart. A fireball may cause harm to anyone it touches, but depending on their chakra control, mental state, or other factors, an illusion will not have the same effect. Genjutsu masters must be knowledgeable about the martial art and able to make impromptu moves. Genjutsu proficiency leads to a greater likelihood of difficulty for individuals in the sport. Genjutsu proficiency can be assessed by a student's capacity to hold their master in an unbreakable illusion. Learning how to fight makes it simpler for me to let go of your deceptions. Is it necessary for me to put in more effort to beat you? She chuckled. In fact, it is. Naruto's sigh was heard. Naruto, do you think I'm prepared? This title is highly significant because you have demonstrated all the qualities of a skilled Genjutsu warrior: originality, flexibility, poise, precision and cleverness. You're prepared, buddy. It was comical, in that peculiar way. Genjutsu seemed like a dream come true for him, but he didn't feel ready to tackle it. Nevertheless, Kurenai's voice had a certain ting that made him question his judgment. Although she commended him for his work, she was seldom upfront about his abilities. Her opinion was that there was always room for improvement. Despite this, he did triumph over her in a real fight. Despite her not making it easy for him, nothing and no one could take away from his victory. If that's the case, then it means that. Naruto's expression was a smile. It's time to declare it. It goes without saying that, of course. She maintained a rigid posture, her spine aligned, and her hands on the ground. Naruto Uzumaki, Chunin of the village hidden in the leaves. By the terms established by the hidden villages, I affirm that you have become an expert in Genjutsu. He didn't expect it to happen, but he still had a smile on his face. Despite facing doubts and difficulties in learning Genjutsu, his efforts to improve his chakra control and the difficulty of mastering it had finally been proven. His dream was realized after a long time. "Kurenai-sensei, thank you," he said. "I wouldn't have been able to learn Genjutsu so easily without you. I will always remember the lessons you've imparted to me." Kurenai expressed his admiration. Her eyes were enlivened by it. "Naruto, I am grateful for your contribution to the story. Your involvement in this craft has been unexpected, and I've had a great deal of pleasure in instructing you and witnessing your development. I am filled with pride for you." After listening to his teacher's praise, Naruto gave her a massive hug. He loved to hold her in his arms, feeling her body pressed against him. He was satisfied with his life and his achievements. The feeling grew stronger when Kurenai held him in her arms, and it felt like they were the only two individuals alive at that moment. They were forced to part, but when Naruto and Kurenai finally did, they both greeted each other with a smile on their faces. Kurenai said to the Hokage, "Let's pay a visit. Your file requires modification." They departed from the waterfall, holding hands and saying, "Sure." Naruto observed Kurenai as they approached the forest's edge. Kurenai smiled and asked if he could have dinner with him. I desire that. Upon entering the village, Kurenai released his hand and moved away from him. He shook his head in response. Her desire to keep their real relationship a secret persisted. Jiraiya was the only one who knew, but it didn't have to be that way. To tell the truth, he was taken aback by nobody else's breakthrough, including Kakashi, Tsunade, and the third force. Would you like to accompany me to Ichiraka Ramen? He asked, and had become more comfortable asking Kurenai on dates, but it was still a big request. Can you please make me look like a prize by showing me off? Naruto asked, gesturing to Kurenai. For an instant, he saw the grimace on Kurenai's face, but it had faded into a soft, viscous expression. That's not something I would ever do. Kurenai scowled, his eyes staring blankly. You're correct, you wouldn't say that. It's a mistake of my own choosing to say that. Naruto expressed his desire to avoid lingering on negative thoughts and words, saying, don't be bothered about it. I would like to introduce myself, specifically to present Ayam and Tucci. If you ever get the chance to meet them, it would be great to do so because they have been such a blessing in my life. Her lips were adorned with a small smile. I desire to have the chance to meet them. Despite being introduced as your girlfriend, I still don't feel comfortable in this situation. Kurenai bit her lip, a habit she had when she was anxious or afraid of hurting him. I'd appreciate it if you could suggest that we wait for another year before going public, in case you were not upset. He was bothered by the fact that this conversation had occurred before, but he tried to understand it from her point of view. The only thing that troubled her was how her few friends would react to the fact that she and the Jinchuriki were obviously of different ages. He remembered Enko's cradle robbery comment with great clarity, and the fear of Kurenai being rejected or treated differently was the last thing on her mind. Kurenai is all right. Naruto said, his voice still ringing with resignation. I'd rather be with you in private than not being with anyone. Moreover, you don't have to hide anything from me. You're capable of telling me anything, can you do that? Kurenai greeted him with a smile and then proceeded to investigate. He was not present, he had checked his sensor. Moving in front of him, she leaned forward and kissed his forehead with her lips. The warmth in his cheeks caused a burning sensation on his face as he pulled away. He was so captivated by Kurenai's words that he only comprehended a small segment of it. What is the explanation for this statement? Many thanks for your help. Naruto gave her a thumbs-up sign. I'm not complaining. There's one positive aspect about being a clandestine group, though. What is the subject? No matter how many flirts they try to hit on you, they're not interested because I was chosen by you. They will be ignorant of the reason behind it. Kurenai chuckled loudly, using her hand to suppress her laughter. Her eyes were filled with love and tenderness, and it was all for him. Naruto, I have no desire to be with anyone else but you. Tsunade was reading from a folder while sitting behind the Hokage's desk, for some reason. Naruto inquired about Tsunade. Smirking was done by Tsunade. I'm going to call that by myself, you know. Jiraiya said, you're a sweet kid. Who was I, the candy man? His old teammate was trailing behind him. Naruto refused to roll his eyes when he did. Regrettably, he didn't adopt the pervy sage's guidance on pickup lines. You might want to wait until after you finish your new book, Tsunade suggested, shaking her head in despair. Naruto asked, what happened to Lord Third? Tsunade stated that he should be enjoying his retirement at this time. I'm scheduled to be inducted as the 5th Hokage tomorrow. Naruto's gaze caught the eye of his subjects with both eyes open. Tsunade's contemptuous behavior towards the other Hokage left him surprised, as he had not been made aware of his intentions. Kurenai and Jiraiya didn't seem to have much in common, which was unexpected. It's likely that they had prior knowledge of something. Why? Tsunade asked, laughing. I realize there's a lot of potential in this situation, so why not offer my assistance? It'll be more meaningful when I give back. Running is no longer a part of my life anymore. He wanted to know what she meant by the last part, but Tsunade had the authority to disclose the complete truth when or if she chose to do so. Tsunade had already made significant improvements to the hospital, and the focus was on achieving results. Shizune had been running a tight loop operation, leading to complaints from nurses and interns about the long hours. Naruto expressed his approval by saying, "Thank you," with a smile. "Get ass rubbed off?" The new Hokage smiled in response. "I will convey my appreciation and say, thank you. I expect you to show me some respect as I am taking on the role of Hokage." Naruto nodded as he spoke. Tsunade's role as Hokage meant that he couldn't imagine showing disrespect towards her, unless she provided him with a justification. Kurenai placed his hand on his shoulder. "Lady Tsunade, I request that you confirm that Naruto has become a master of Genjutsu. Today, I gave him a thorough test and he successfully passed." Tsunade's gaze lit up, but she couldn't resist smiling. "I'll make sure to change his file as soon as I can. I'm looking for a comprehensive overview of Naruto's development that you can share with me. As directed by you." Jiraiya's pride was evident as he smiled at him. "You've already done it, don't you?" "I'm just shocked." Tsunade's words caused him to elicit an eyebrow-raising response. He said, "I wouldn't have seen him play the Rasengan properly. I have a feeling that Naruto will be the one in charge of this place for some time to come." The real surprise was not that Tsunade was attempting to mess with him. She had always been so hard on him, it seemed like she was only interested in making him mad. But he'd take it. Naruto blushed and remarked, "I do my best," after hearing all the praise. "Jiraiya has a message to share with you, so I'm pleased you're here," Tsunade declared. Jiraiya's eyes were hard to resist as she stared at him. Instantly, the cheerfulness in the room had dissipated. "We're going to go on a training excursion." The tension on Naruto's shoulder became unbearable. Kurenai inquired, "What will you teach him?" Jiraiya stated that ninjutsu, along with sealing and enhancing his bond with toads. "When the toads and I are confident, I'll start teaching him how to harness natural energy. I'll also devote some time to improving his taijutsu skills." Naruto was so attracted to the sound of all this. His mastery in Genjutsu, which almost made him smile on the spot, enabled him to concentrate on his chakra cultivation and Taijitinga skills. Unfortunately, this skill was not his strongest suit. Although Kurenai had aided him, Jiraiya was not. "If Naruto wants to depart, he must accompany us and remain with us." Jiraiya's expression was grimacing. Naruto inquired, "Do you recall how many times you have come across me since your return to the village?" "Nope," he replied. "In fact, it is. I am in charge of a spy organization. If I were to stop working and return to training you, you would only acquire a small amount of the skills you need. We would both be disadvantaged." Naruto observed Kurenai's frown forming as she looked up. "How much longer will this training trip be?" Jiraiya asked Tsunade to answer, giving him a quick nod. "It's possible that it hasn't been 3 years, but maybe less." Naruto's speed in finishing his training sets the stage for a more comprehensive outcome. "For 3 years, I have been away from the village and Kurenai for extended periods." He was able to get to know her better than anyone else, and now he didn't want to leave her. He was not willing to part with his other friends either. He was finally enjoying his time in this village. Naruto observed Kurenai's lips being pursed, as if she were truly contemplating the idea rather than simply giving into it. It was unusual for him to have traveled that long during his training, didn't he need it? Kurenai added, "There's another reason why you want Naruto away from the village." Tsunade positioned her hands on her desk. "It is a fact. The tailed beasts are being pursued by the Akatsuki, a group that claims to be in charge of tracking them. Their intentions with them are uncertain, but they pose a significant risk, and you're in danger once more. Naruto savored his food. What is the level of danger associated with all of them? Jiraiya remarked, recalling that they are all S-rank ninjas and have undergone first-hand experience of their capabilities. To say that didn't come across as good was an understatement. The presence of a group of uptight ninjas, either from Orochimaru or Mei Terumi, was enough to scare him into submission, and the only reason they were attacking him was due to the monster that had been trapped in his stomach. It's a good question to ask. I have another incentive to gain strength, don't you think? It's one heck of an incentive, Tsunade said. Before they begin to deploy, you must reach that level, and unfortunately, Jiraiya is the only viable alternative. Although I could train you, I would be occupied with other duties and only capable of teaching taijutsu. Being proficient in elemental ninjutsu is not my forte, and I don't think you would have any interest in becoming a medical practitioner. With a shrug, Naruto proceeded to say. It could be of any assistance. I understand that learning to heal people won't be useful, but I have a strict code of conduct that my students must adhere to. In the event of a medic dying on the field due to their desire to fight the enemy, the entire team is at risk. Would you be willing to prioritize your team's safety and well-being, even if it means being the last one standing? Despite being expected given her personality, it served as another reminder that Tsunade wasn't solely a drunk gambler who exploited anyone but herself. I don't think you had a specific response, Tsunade responded, hinting at his lack of enthusiasm. The warmth of her eyes had dissipated. Sarutobi-sensei may have the knowledge to teach you everything, but he should still be able to enjoy his retirement and spend time with his family. Although Kakashi can enhance your ninjutsu and taijutsu, he's more adept at mastering high-level missions. It's doubtful that you would be content with his guidance, given the way your bond with Kurenai originated. Kurenai asked, stoically, how did you come across that information? He was unable to put into words the intense emotion that resided in her red eyes. Like a shark, Tsunade looked at Kurenai and smiled. I research as much as I can. Naruto viewed this scene. It was a staring competition that took place, and to his satisfaction, she was standing up to one of the Sanins. He was in a state of discomfort, but upon looking at Jiraiya, he appeared to be eating everything. He may have been the only one to notice how the air in the room had become so suffocating that it was almost impossible to breathe again. Tsunade answered, that's all right, by glancing at him. Kurenai breathed his last while he was with him. You've listened to me and heard my voice. Jiraiya is the best person you can be trained to be, even if he doesn't look or behave like that. Jiraiya shook his head in wonder. I'm ready to show some respect. Despite the events that took place between them, Tsunade was not ready to sell Kakashi short. He had always been a good person and was well versed in his profession. Despite this, he was skeptical that Kakashi would be willing to put everything aside just to assist him. He was not his guru. Kurenai and Jiraiya were one and the same. Naruto stated, I must take a break from thinking about it. Jiraiya gave him a smile. It's clear that it is. I'll be in the village for a few weeks, so make sure to reflect on your desires with great care. Please don't delay, as I'll be departing with or without you. Tsunade expressed his desire for people to stay in the area, but cautioned that staying there could jeopardize their safety and that of the village. Apart from Jiraiya and Sarutobi-sensei, there are only 3 individuals who I believe have the ability to handle an S-rank without any assistance, and I can't rely on Kakashi or Guy for long-term use. Having had a taste of the outside world, I don't think you'd enjoy being trapped here. Tsunade maintained a direct gaze over him. I will ensure your safety, no matter what you decide to do. Naruto's expression was a smile. I am grateful for your help, which is why I say, thank you. There were no shortage of surprises to come in today. The news of his Genjutsu mastery had already left him feeling disillusioned, but succeeding in his goal wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of what lies ahead for him. And it would be etched in his memory forever. Naruto and his girlfriend, the sensei, decided to part ways after he had made arrangements to meet up at her apartment in the evening, leaving him feeling devastated. He went to Ichiraku Ramen during lunchtime since it was already lunchtime. The combination of steamy noodles and warm broth in his stomach would be calming, as it would help him relax. Upon reaching the unassuming ledge, he observed Shikamaru being finished with a bowl of ramen. It wasn't unexpected when Shikamaru showed up at Ichiraku Ramen. Earlier this month, Naruto introduced him to Ayam and they started a romantic relationship. He's become a frequent visitor to the ramen spot ever since. As per his statement, Ayam wasn't a creep like the other women in his life and the stand was quiet. Naruto yelled, "Hey, Ayam," in accordance with his customary tone. "Come on in, chicken ramen." Ayam exclaimed as he got ready to work, but Shikamaru quickly turned around to face him. "How's it going, Naruto?" he asked. Naruto sat with his friend and smiled. Shikamaru smiled back at him, "Sure, I'm doing great. I recently returned from a mission that was ongoing yesterday. I'm eagerly awaiting the opportunity to get some sleep." Naruto said, "I hear you, please. Do you know any ninjutsu?" "Currently engaged in working on my shadow holdings, primarily. Asuma is encouraging me to start learning ninjutsu so that I can expand my skills and interests." The mention of Asuma caused him to be frightened. Although Asuma was affable during their brief encounters, it was his friendship with Kurenai that caused him some concern. Nevertheless, there was no need to worry. Kurenai had informed him that Asuma wasn't fond of her, so he decided to give them the benefit of the doubt. "Is your chakra the earth's essence?" Naruto inquired. "In any respect, it is true that this is the case. Your ability to sense is advantageous. It's fantastic. It's a great idea to learn more about ninjutsu. Your shadows can be utilized in a more diverse manner." There was a small smile on his face. "I considered whether I could confine my adversary with walls or create gaps to make them reconsider. I might consider rigging some balloons if I had the opportunity to use wind ninjutsu." Shikamaru moaned, "You must learn how to use your chakras before you can do anything of that sort." She said, "Ugh, don't bring that up. What is the reason for the significant time lag in earth shifting?" Naruto was unable to provide an explanation for this. He was still in the process of dividing a waterfall. His experimentation with wind ninjutsu resulted in a significant boost in its power and speed. The shortcut Jiraiya had taught him was still applicable in a pinch, but it didn't match up to the actual thing. "Here you go, Naruto." Ayam shouted as he placed his bowl on the table. Steam rushed towards the ceiling and his mouth was filled with anticipation for the smell of the broth and the chicken mixing with the noodles. "Thanks, Ayam," he added. He looked around before he could dig in and didn't see anyone else. "Is your dad in the process of buying supplies?" she asked. "When he comes back, let me know how you're feeling when I say hi." Naruto consumed a portion of the noodles with gusto. After ingesting them all, he opened his mouth and sighed in contentment. Naruto exclaimed, "Oh my god, it's delicious," while eating his ramen, relishing the blend of flavors and the conviviality of his preferred dining establishment. Ayam was on his way for his second bowl. "You seem to be in good spirits," Shikamaru remarked. He had no fill in his bowl. Naruto was halfway through his new dungeon and smiled. Shikamaru said, "Yes I did, that is for sure." Shikamaru gazed at him with confusion. Naruto's black eyes were so stark that he could almost feel the shifting mental processes in his head. "Genjutsu is over, right?" He clapped his shoulder. "Thanks, I'd never thought it possible," he exclaimed, and proceeded to say, "I couldn't have started this journey without you. I struggled with chakra control and genjutsu, but you believed I could handle it." It was the level of trust and support that he appreciated the most about Shikamaru. His assumption was that Shikamaru simply favored him to have someone else play shiki with, but he had repeatedly shown his reliability. They could talk to each other without any interruptions, no matter how long they remained apart. He had a friend who was extremely relaxed, but it was cherished by him and sometimes made him feel so lucky. Shikamaru's expression was one of contemplation, and he looked down. I believe that if I encouraged you to consider Genjutsu, it would help you stand out from the crowd. Despite your creative tendencies, you managed to excel in Genjutsu and earn an A rank. To tell the truth, I was uncertain if you had the ability to hack it. Shikamaru stopped Naruto's cut just as he was about to, holding his hand. This is the point I am trying to make. Whether you want to be the ultimate Hokage or master the best Genjutsu, it's entirely different. He smirked earnestly, his eyes wide open. I need to be aware of this. You were able to access the bingo book by reading the books I had given you, thanks to your strong Genjutsu abilities. This prompted me to consider the possibility that he might be capable of doing it. Naruto's heart grew larger and larger as Shikamaru smiled at him. Naruto Uzumaki, the Genjutsu master, is here with you. Naruto nodded and swallowed thickly. Genjutsu had been a source of joy for him, but the opportunity to share it with his mentor made him realize the extent of his accomplishment. The memory of how far he had come to haunt him, and a smile was smooch upon hearing it. Thank you, he declared. Shikamaru said, thank you so much. Anytime. Shikamaru released himself by squeezing his shoulder again. Naruto opted to finish his second serving of ramen before it turned cold. Its deliciousness persisted for a long time. When he finished, Ayame was grinning at him. You're growing up, Naruto, she declared, reaching for his bowl. Naruto's eyes flicked as he said, it'll be funny if you do it. How? Ayame inquired. You don't speak with your mouth in a loud manner, unlike other individuals. He stumbled, reliving an event from when he was having dinner at Shikamaru's residence. Yoshino's tongue lashing was so intense that he never thought about doing it again after catching him talking with a mouthful of rice. He had a habit of visiting Yoshino and Shikaku in his free time. Despite being invited to his own promotion party, he was aware that a stranger like him would not be tolerated and could speak for themselves. He was a member of the community. According to Ayame, you have remained true to Naruto, but with more thoughtfulness. According to Shikamaru, she's correct. While it was true that he developed and even changed in some respects, Ayame's words were convincing. Despite having new friends and the ability to overcome hate, he still had to maintain his status as a reserved person who gained respect from those around him. He was not disliked by everyone due to his unwavering personality. He felt at ease knowing that he could come back to them, which made him feel relaxed. Naruto knocked on the door of Kurenai's apartment in a brief moment. He was not noticed by anyone in the building, and he had to wait briefly before the facility opened. The curvaceous figure of Kurenai was clad in a daring red dress. Her right wrist was covered in a bracelet she had bought, and her floral perfume that blended rose and lavender without any discernible harm. Naruto smiled and said, "Good evening, Kurenai." Despite the fact that she was aware of his presence, he wasn't embarrassed by it. "You're a wonderful person, with such an impressive appearance." He savored her lively, flickering smile. Her gaze drew attention to his attire. He was still dressed in the usual black and orange kimono, which is always a source of comfort for him. It had a chance to make him look good. "Naruto, I am grateful for your contribution to the story. Your appearance suggests that you are quite dashing." She retreated to the side, giving him some space to explore. "I request that you come in." "Excuse me, I entered," he stated. He removed his sandals and proceeded to his companion's living room. While Kurenai remained standing, he waited for her to take her seat. Kurenai said, looking over her shoulder, "We'll be finished with dinner in a few minutes. In the meantime, you can sit down." Naruto sat on the sofa while his girlfriend went missing to the kitchen. His body was filled with excitement when he realized Kurenai was his girlfriend. The excitement he had about his relationship and the sensations she stirred in their relationship, which was over 3 months old, had only intensified. He had never bothered to ask for her touch, scent, or a brief glimpse of her again. The moment she smiled at him, he felt his heart race through his chest. He caught his breath as he looked across a room. As he laughed, his stomach did backflips. His knees grew weary when she caught sight of the smoky look in her eyes. His lips drenched as soon as she reached out for a kiss, which made him feel wet. When she touched him, his eyes glazed and his mind raced when she kissed him. Naruto was aware of his addiction, and even if he wanted to, a break from it would be impossible. Unlike anyone he had ever met or imagined, she had a unique impact on his body. 2 food-filled plates were presented by Kurenai as he emerged from the kitchen. The plates on the table caused Naruto to raise his eyebrows. Naruto inquired about beef skewers. In addition to steamed rice, there are other dishes that can be served with it. Sitting next to him, Kurenai sported a smile. I want to know what we're having for dessert. Kurenai exclaimed, pull me in, cake. He nodded off. It's best to hold off and see what transpires. Kurenai's desire to recreate the dishes served during their first date was unimaginable, but she had a knack for it. She had a better taste than him when it came to food. The 2 individuals ate their dinner in quiet, mutually enjoying the meal. Occasionally, Naruto would witness Kurenai eating and steal glances from him when she believes he wasn't paying attention. Kurenai washed dishes and returned with dessert after the delicious feast. The outcome was unexpectedly similar, with a large cake slice on top. On the other hand, she had a set of forks in her possession. Naruto exclaimed, I knew it, while looking at his girlfriend. The only response Kurenai gave was a wink. I thought you had a distaste for cake, but I was under the impression that you didn't enjoy it. It's not a favorite among me, but I can tolerate it without any danger. With Kurenai by his side, they set up the saucer and forks. Using one of the forks, she cut a piece of cake and proceeded to put it in his mouth. Naruto slatted down and devoured the item with delight. It's really commendable. Kurenai, thank you. After a brief moment of concentration, Kurenai looked back and smiled. We extend a warm welcome to Naruto, your guest. Have you considered the possibility of going on a training trip? Yeah. I believe it would be a great opportunity for me, but I regret having to spend 3 years in one position. It's been a long time, Kurenai stated, while holding her fork. Nevertheless, if you opt to depart from here, I suggest you stay. We can now move forward from the previous step. You should stay with me, but I don't want to restrict you. Relief fell asleep as he spoke. Kurenai's decision to leave was made easier, partly due to the knowledge that he would be fine with it. That's very important to me, Naruto declared, his face flushed with a radiant light. With his own fork, he gave his girlfriend a slice of the cake and she devoured it with bites. When she finished, she released the pressure of the fork and sucked it. The pair persisted in serving each other cakes, beaming with joy at their shared celebration. He was able to finish the task before his intended time, and he witnessed Kurenai's move to retrieve the cutlery. He placed a hand on her unclothed knee and smiled broadly, before having the clone clean herself. Despite the clone's frown, it still managed to perform the job. Kurenai's attention was focused on the clone, providing him with enough distraction. As soon as Naruto's blue eyes collided with red, she kissed her ruby-red lips and quickly returned with a rush. He sported a smiley face. Naruto's adrenaline-high-fueled laughter, he said, I got you on the spot. Kurenai touched her lips with one hand and felt them for a moment. Short-lived though, not today. They made eye contact with each other again. Kurenai gave him a passionate kiss but he didn't care for her. They had been playing the game for the past month, as their dates usually ended in a heavy mouth of gooey makeout. The first person to kiss after eating won a point, and the first to lose their breath won't win anything. Naruto's hand strode up her leg, landing on her soft thigh. It was slender and toasty. In the following minutes, they engaged in a lip-to-lip competition to determine who would open first. Kurenai secured the win in the end. No one won the game yet as her lips were swollen and full, but she wasn't breathless. "Take this to the love seat," Kurenai said, her voice raspy and seductive. Naruto surveyed Kurenai's eyes with great depth. He drew her into his arms and quickly swung her back. She said, "My queen, you can do what you please." Black hair stray locks were removed from Kurenai's face by blowing them off. She glanced at his face and then kissed him on the whiskers, causing him to be cross-leaved. He walked a short distance to the love seat before sitting up, leaving him and his girlfriend in limbo. Although they spent a lot of time kissing on the couch, they never made out in the love seat. He promptly comprehended the motive behind Kurenai's desire for him to be there. The object was exceptionally soft and sizable, making it suitable for both of them. She sat on his lap and leaned into him, her generous chest pressing against his pecs as her lips reclaimed his affection. He squirmed in response to her moving forward, and she moved her tongue past the gap. The sensitive spot on his back was discovered by her wandering hands, and he let out a loud moan before arching backwards. The pair danced together, their hands touching her backside and leaving her dress on her skin. He adored the attractive red dress on her, as it allowed her to experiment with her back and eliminate any worries about bras or clothing. She bent down on him, allowing his hands to sink in and massage the muscle like glue. His hands, mouth, and chest were struck by electric shocks as their bodies merged. He felt a pull to make his beautiful breasts grip him and wanted to hold them in his hands so that he could make her writhe against him. He had to govern himself as he was uncertain about whether Kurenai would persist with his plans. Rather than doing it, he let one of his hands slide down her backwards above her tailbone and then held on for a while before following up her side. Kurenai tossed her head back and unleashed a loud moan that raised his ego's eruption. He grasped her neck and sucked the large patch of skin she had exposed. Her purring style resembled that of a cat, exalting him even more. He ghosted over her pale skin with his lips and, as he had anticipated, she groaned from sheer pleasure. He was stoic beneath him, and his heart raced with fear as she came within touching him. He was too busy to care about his imagination, so he kissed her directly under her ear. He moved his hands in a coordinated manner, touching the areas of her vulnerability and making her gripping him like he had an instrument to play. With a sense of confidence, Naruto proceeded to tenderly insert his penis onto the beautiful woman's undeveloped shoulder, grasping into her skin. He released it by poking and observed a small bruise spreading. His mark was that. Anyone who believed they could claim Kurenai would be disappointed. She was his person. The memory would last for a long time, but it was short-lived. He was an excellent person. Naruto swung his hand over her dress's silk fabric and reached for her waist. He used his left hand to stroke through her luxuriously silky hair and then pulled her neck back to kiss it again. As a reward for another throaty moan, he answered. He slammed his lips and spat out, while his right hand moved up her toned stomach and into her breasts. He bowed deeply and reached for her breast, tenderly holding it in his hand. Ultimately, Naruto stayed in that place for a moment, watching what she would do, but she hadn't moved yet. She was anticipating his arrival. He agreed to do it and pressed her breast against the material. She groaned at him and his blood became a fiery inferno. Her tongue came into contact with his, and her breath rubbed off. He touched her breast, noticing its weight and feeling its warmth. It would be nice if her dress was not hindering her appearance. Kurenai cried out once more and took the opportunity to inspect her sparkling red eyes. They were circling the top of the sky, slowly becoming more concentrated. He desired her to concentrate on the pleasure he was providing. He sensed a pull on her breast, so he held it down and dug in. As she screamed, her body began to tremble against his grip, almost giving off a rat-like pain. Her red eyes widened as she pulled away from their kiss and grabbed his wrist with such force that it felt like she was about to crush it. "Shut up," she cried out, pushing herself away and taking a step back as the love seat propelled against the wall. Naruto stumbled, unsteadily. Shortness of breath caused her chest to sway and she was in a tumult. Her dress was slickly tied in a bun and her hair was frizzy and frayed, with multiple outgrown strands. Her lips were dripping with blood in slow rivulets, but her cheeks were flushed with a brighter shade of blue than ever before on her face. It was delicious. Her blood-red eyes looked swollen and contorted, but that was nothing in comparison. Witnessing Kurenai's eyes drenched in it, the realization that there was no mistaking it for something else left him heartbroken. He had witnessed it so many times that he couldn't remember how and never imagined Kurenai would look at him in that manner. She was intimidated by him. It halted his vitality, incapacitating his thinking. That couldn't be possible. He contacted her, determined to touch her once more and erase that expression from his eyes. "Kurenai." She stooped and he felt his hope breaking, his heart racing. Her fearful eyes caused him to become watery as he stared at him. With her arm in front of her breasts, she used her other hand to smooth out her dress. "I can't say it enough. I suggest you go," she declared. Such a statement didn't sit well in Naruto's head. It was improbable that his Kurenai would instruct him to depart from her. "I am seeking your input, please." She let out a shiver in her hands and slowly dropped them to her sides, but as soon as he reached for her, she turned her back to him. "Leave, Naruto, for one. What are your thoughts on this matter?" The tone was not the assertive and self-assured voice he spoke, nor the alluring bassinet that had always drawn him in. The room was broken, peaceful. A fraction of what it could have been. He had to leave when he had no other option. He went to the doorway and took his sandals, looked at her eyes, and tried to make her understand his mistake, but her red eyes were unclear. She retreated, using the hand on his bracelet to hold her shoulder as she held onto the wrist. Naruto escaped from his home. He scoured the furthest point from his girlfriend before leaving. He would never know if she cried or reacted. He came close to falling when he tried on his sandals, but ultimately managed to jump vertically and run away, leaving him with no choice but to flee in a blurred vision. He tried to see through the darkness with his tears, but then stumbled and tumbled down an alley, leaving behind dirt and blood on his face as he wore it without clothing and tearing his perfectly perfect kimono. After standing up, Naruto continued his journey. He acknowledged his pain, loss, suffering, and agony that night. The trail of tears left by him was forgotten, and his body was engulfed by the night's darkness. Naruto used a violent swing to split the waterfall into two jagged sections, each with heightened wind chakra. Despite efforts, the surface wasn't smooth enough. He was still unable to complete the entire cut. It had been a week since his disastrous date with Kurenai ended. The thought of her caused a sharp pain in his heart. He had not reached her, nor did she, and he had no knowledge of their whereabouts. He had secluded himself in his special place, returning to the village only to have food or sleep. He had no desire to communicate with anyone and devoted himself to his training. He had the potential to become a Genjutsu master, but there was no chance of it happening soon. Instead, he planned to pursue his passion for ninjutting. Only Shikamaru had managed to extract him from his little bubble a few days after he was discovered. The waterfall was a topic of interest for him, and Shikamaru persuaded him to dine at his place after hearing about it. After leaving Kurenai's apartment, Yoshino smiled when he saw the birthday cake arranged for him. Despite not feeling the need to celebrate his birthday, Shikamaru and his family's discovery of him and their reminder of what he had brought almost made it through. The gloom persisted. Despite their awareness of his mood, he was never forced to speak up. He came home that day to find a card from Irika wishing him his birthday. It was enough for them to go out for ramen on his birthday. He continued the tradition without any external influence, this time by himself. Sakura, Chai, Tenten, Hinata, Lee, Anko, Igeo and Kotetsu and Izumo both sent him birthday messages and cards, while Shizun and Tsunade also sent to him in the same way. Asuma had wished him happy birthday while he was in between missions, and Jiraiya provided him with an exclusive copy of Ika Ikaza Paradise through toting. He felt appreciated and wanted, but wondered why he was still in the village. Although it took him 3 years to get through, it wasn't the entire reason he stayed. He had a slight desire to rectify the situation with Kurenai. 5 months of kindness and trust were not erased by a single mistake. The fear, heartbreak, and despair had almost ruined that part of him. He snorted and then turned his head back. In her ninja attire, Shizun was seen standing on the water. Naruto revealed that Shizun was not only Tsunade's assistant, but also an adept ninja who could take care of her own apprentice. Like a capable ninja, she could disregard any emotions for the task at hand. Naruto inquired, "How did you come across me?" Shizun stated that Shikamaru had informed them of your destination. Her hands were completely covered with sleeves. That's the story of it. Let's not hold on to anything, please. Shizun's smile was a positive thing, as it brought him some happiness. She then led him back to the Hokage's office. After entering, Tsunade placed her hands in front of her mouth and inspected him. "I'll be straight to the heart of it," Tsunade declared. The village has seen Sasuke Uchiha's departure from the area. Prior to leaving, he was seen with ninja from the Hidden Sound village. Naruto's mind raced with the news, causing him to blink in response. Tsunade responded by saying that his motives were not significant. "I've already dispatched a team to eliminate the Sound Ninja. Your task is to aid them with the help of Shizun, and if necessary, to rescue them. I've dispatched my ninja, but additional support will only be available in 2 to 3 hours." Sasuke inquired about Tsunade's brown eyes, and he replied with an uncomplicated answer. "You place great importance on your fellow citizens. If you approach him and he decides to fight, then you know what to do. Is there something I'm not ashamed of?" Naruto nodded and stood silent while observing. "Yes, Lady Hokage." His goal was clear, and it provided him with a sense of purpose and aided in detaching him from inner turmoil. Naruto left the village with great speed as Shizun followed him. Chai's skeletal remains were discovered by him in no time. After Shizun stabilized him, his chakra began to fade away, and Naruto felt a surge of deep pride for his friend after witnessing the crater beneath his opponent's body. Naruto created 12 clones to accompany Chai back to the village, and Shizun made a shadow relic of her own. Naruto inquired, "Are you capable of creating them?" Shizun smiled to him small. "That's the truth. Despite my limitations, you are able to make as many as you can." She had no trouble keeping up with him, so her ability to use the shadow clone jutsu was further evidence of her skill. He had a small smile on his face. Softly, it was be good to know. The fact that Hinata and Shino's adversary persisted in firing large arrows was not worth it. Despite Naruto's attempt to stop one of them with a powerful gust of wind, the arrow was still in range. The distraction was significant enough for him to grab Hinata's bloody body and pull her away. The webs that filled the battlefield were choking through Shino's Kakache, but their master was barely keeping his head down, grasping his dismembered shoulder. Naruto discovered the Sound Ninja and promptly used a disorienting Genjutsu to guide him, which allowed Shizun to close the gap and release toxins that completely covered the gangster. He fell from the tree, his face a shadow of human before the black spots faded and his third eye shut. With a blood-splattered hand, Hinata held onto his wrist. "Naruto. Many thanks for your help." Despite the damage caused by Shizun's clones, Naruto responded by giving her a tight smile and creating more reenactments to bring his fellow ninja back to the village. Despite their injuries, Kiba and Akamaru were discovered in a ravine on the death site. The remains of their adversary were standing guard over Kankura, who was a member of the Hidden Sand. Despite Shizen's offer to heal them, Kiba refused and waved her off. It was unnecessary for him to have an escort back to the village, but Akamaru needed help. Shizen turned around to look at him, and Kiba was given the dressing for his stomach injury. After exiting the ravine, Naruto found Shikamaru next, and his closest friend emerged unscathed with only one broken finger. Overlooking a patch of orchards, Temari was clutching her fan. Naruto observed the sound ninja, or her residual remains, draped in fallen logs. Tsunade was unable to completely heal her due to the numerous fractures in her body. Shikamaru grimaced and said, "Leave Lee, Naruto. He is in need of your aid, please. I'll be fine." After renouncing Temari's curious gaze, Naruto discovered Lee engaged in combat in a vast, open field. The pace of Lee's movements was so fast that Naruto could barely keep up, and his opponent was taking hits that struck boulders without any hesitation. Upon entering, Lee was subjected to a brutal punch, but the sound ninja managed to catch him with his drill. Lee destroyed the drill by manipulating his hand after a force of two forces collided. The sound ninja reinvented the drill and was swiftly submerged in a surge of sand. Gaara had arrived, hovering over a sand platform. Lee's brutal language and Gaara's savage claws were the key to their victory over the sound ninja, who never lost hope. Lee collapsed from exhaustion, leaving Gaara just in time for her next turn. The pulsating redness of his skin returned to its usual cream state, and the chakra that drenched his body with a greenish hue flickered out of existence. Without delay, Shizen placed her hands on Lee's head and shook her head. Shizen's eyes were tense as he said, "Naruto, pursue Sasuke, out of fear. I trust you'll find him while I take care of Lee and arrange affairs with our allies." "Is that comprehensible?" "Yes, sir," one of the speakers replied. He stated that Sasuke's confrontation would require no intervention from anyone. Maintenance be given to all individuals. Naruto was almost thrown out after Gaara said, "Good luck." Gaara's encouragement was not the only thing he had, as the bitterness that had pervaded his existence had vanished. Nevertheless, he looked at Gaara with a smile. "Thanks to all of you." According to his own timing, Naruto sprinted until he reached the peak of Hashirama Senju's statue in the Valley of the End. Sasuke's body was struck by Madara Uchiha, who stood on his head, at the statue across from the waterfall. Sasuke referred to Naruto. "I was aware that you had arrived." His chakra network was obstructed by the dark, foul energy that flowed through it. His hands were drooping on his sides, and he was unclothed. There was no evidence of a headband on his forehead. "Sasuke, what are you up to?" Naruto asked. His face was covered in a scorching smile. "Why are you giving up on us? You're aware that we were putting you behind when you first joined, but you decided to leave because of that. I'm not blaming you for the situation. To be honest, I commend your initiative." Naruto's expression was one of a frown. "I never left the Hidden Leaf, I found people inside that could provide me with assistance," Sasuke declared. "And I've also discovered outsiders who can give me the strength I need," she said. His smile was a perfect representation of his teeth, adhering to his face like glue. "I have no more things to do here." "What about Sakura?" Naruto inquired. Sasuke's eyes lit up with joy. "She'd obstruct my path by being too close to her. Itachi is not benevolent towards the weak, and I have no use for friendship in my quest for revenge." Naruto resisted Sasuke's indifference to alleviate his unease. "You're going to kill your brother by leaving Sakura, Kakashi-sensei, and others behind in the village." "I don't believe you," Sasuke muttered with a cold frown. "I'm not aware of any benevolence from this village, given the fact that their own clan was slaughtered in their community. They always rejected me when I asked them, as if I was unintelligent." Sasuke's eyes shone with a poisonous anger, his mouth contorted with an evil scowl. I didn't feel pain, so why should I be concerned about others? Naruto's initial assumption was that Sasuke had finally regained his sense of self-worth. He had been frightened by the curse seal, but during their last conversation, he found purpose in his limited bonds and it was enough to ease his anxiety. Sasuke's lack of anger wasn't unexpected, and he was not surprised by it either. He truly comprehended, in reality. I was not taken kindly by anyone, Naruto revealed, his eyes wide open. I'd rather satisfy them than flee. He couldn't truly comprehend the pain of losing his family, as it occurred before his birth. He didn't have to squander his life trying to help Sasuke before he made a mistake that would haunt him for the rest of his days. You can create a new family, Naruto declared, sensing the power of passion. You are loved by the villagers, Sasuke. It's not necessary to leave. It makes me feel sick to see the hypocrites. They only cared about me being the last Uchiha or Rookie of the Year, but I had a clear perspective on their situation. Their kind words and compassion seemed like a necessary measure to assist me in seeking revenge, as they didn't care enough to do so. They allowed Itachi to walk and thought I would be happy as long as he was invisible. According to Naruto, Kakashi-sensei imparted to you his Chidori lesson. You were not alone in his help, Sasuke remarked. Itachi was left alive as Kakashi refused to assist me in his murder. Is it true that in an effort to seek revenge on my clan, I was deemed a flight risk and subjected to village surveillance? Naruto's gaze broadened inward and became wider. What did you tell me? You opined that you didn't know, Sasuke quipped in a cold sweat. This is a prized possession. The watchers of the old man were not detected by the censor, and Kakashi had previously shown me how to identify chakra. Nevertheless, you are the Nine-Tails container. Naruto stated that if they were watching me, they would be following you. It's not important at all. They can keep up with me whenever they want, and they'll understand I'm a faithful companion. Naruto noticed that you were loyal and it was apparent that a chakra signature was approaching them, which snaked through Madara's statue like descending on ice. Naruto's purple attire, gray top, and round glasses were revealed when he emerged from the room. It was the musical note on his forehead protector that caught him off guard the most. With his glasses in the air, Kabuto Yakushi muttered, "Kabut," as if to ask for forgiveness. Asserted with guilt as evidence. Naruto's hands were clasped tightly by his fists. You joined the sound? How could you betray the leaf? He asked, causing a menacing expression. Betrayal is a risk when you are loyal to something, and the hidden leaf never even tried to win my trust. Naruto examined Kabuto's chakra, and it was not suppressed as he had in his exams. The object was savage, almost like a medical toy, and much larger than Sasuke's weapon. Accords to the individual who is fulfilling Orochimaru's request. With a giggle, Kabuto expressed his delight. Lord Orochimaru has been a constant source of me in my life. Naruto, can you recall your Hokage not lying to you? He has also lied to Sasuke and his Warhawk has done much wrong. Through training, Naruto transformed his features into a composed mask. The third had been dishonest, but Kabuto didn't have to be aware of it. People possess their own confidential information. It's a delicate balance between secrecy and disrespect, Kabuto stated. He flew through a group of hand seals. Naruto's revelations have been enlightening, but as the saying goes, they are not without reason. The job requires a certain level of commitment. Kabuto's illusion caused the gap between them to widen, but Naruto quickly slammed it and broke through the Genjutsu. A Genjutsu was used to bite his ankle, and it turned out to be a snake with the same color as the statue he was standing on. I consider that a distraction. He experienced a frozen sensation in his ankle and had blurred vision. He had been so focused on Sasuke that he failed to notice the snake's venom. A little trust can blind you, Kabuto warned, as Naruto fell forward and struck the first Hokage in the head. I'm not concerned with that one detail, but I can tell you this. Kabuto's growth accelerated to 2 and then 4. Sasuke's gaze widened, and it could be that the poison was present. He was so close to gushing that he saw a look of regret on his face. The sterile scent of bleach and clean linen sheets attacked Naruto. The familiar white of the hospital was visible to him when he opened his eyes, but the bright light caused them to close. He was alive, but his arms and legs were pretty stiff. The brightness decreased, and the curtains shattered. After not seeing this person for more than 2 months, Naruto opened his eyes and spotted their chakra. Naruto, Kakashi stood next to the window and stated, "I have been absent from sight for a long time." Naruto inquired, "Kakashi-sensei? Where did you go?" Naruto's expression was one of scowling. "Excuse me? I finished my task just as you had left on that mission yesterday." He was consumed by the idea of completing several backbreaking missions without any respite, and his thoughts stopped abruptly after realizing that a whole day had passed. "How long did it take for me to be out?" Kakashi muttered before getting ready to go to the hospital bed. "The poison was designed to devour you from the inside out." Naruto gingerly sported his hair by gripping it down. He remained in pain all over the place. Orochimaru resumes his assault on the field. That's the way he does it. Happily, Shizune provided a stabilizing injection at the location, which resulted in the recovery of your body and soul. The tenant has a chance to recover and make progress. We are presently in this place. The Nine-Tails blew air into his mind, but he watched with indifference. Naruto inquired, "Why did Shizune bring me back?" "No, I did," Kakashi replied. "You were in a state of madness and Sasuke was gone for an extended period. His scent was too much for me to detect without leaving you behind." Naruto smiled at his former teacher. Kakashi's eye bled and disfigured. Naruto slammed his hand on his knee and bit back the pain with his voice. Kasuki was receiving aid from Kabuto Yakushi. He betrayed the village. Kakashi sighed. "I acknowledge that. When the sound invaded us, Kabuto was the one who caused everyone in the arena to fall asleep. He's a highly dangerous man." Kabuto had been employed by Orochimaru since then, and it was possible that he had held this position for a longer duration. By pretending to be a failure expert, he avoided attention during the process of gathering information for the sound, which was successful because having high levels of chakra did not indicate inability to use it properly. The fact that Kabuto deceived everyone was probably worth it. Kakashi said, "Just wanted to say, congratulations on your promotion. You've not only become a Chunin, but you're also proficient in Genjutsu and Rasengan." Naruto's expression was one of a frown. Kakashi had his hands in his pockets and asked, "What's up?" "I was informed by your master about it. Although I haven't been the most successful sensei, Naruto, I feel a great sense of pride in you." He shook his head in an effortless manner. "You knew what you were doing, right?" "I had my own." He wished to avoid looking back at the past and the suffering caused by those memories, and hoped Kakashi would be aware of it. "I never had any doubts about your abilities," Kakashi remarked. "You may have started slowly, but you had the determination and drive to achieve great things." He exhibited a frown on his face. "I requested you to assist me in learning jutsu, so why didn't you help me?" "Teamwork is more important than fighting together," Kakashi explained, and Naruto was moved by the memory of their encounter on the bridge. "Once you and your former teammates were able to work together, you lost interest in them and found other ways to improve yourself." "You're aware of the reason," Naruto said, gazing at the wall and avoiding Kakashi's bewildered gaze. "You made new friends and Team 7 became an unexpected distraction." "I wasn't surprised. I pondered, if I couldn't be your hero, then I made the commitment to help you wherever possible." He gave a firm, unyielding nod. "I appreciate your assistance in resolving my Genjutsu problem, which was difficult for me. You taught me the means of locating Master Jiraiya." He halted his gaze. I'm still in the dark about why a shadow clone couldn't observe me. Lord Jiraiya was resolute in his decision to instruct you on the matter. He suggested that I concentrate on Sasuke. I gave my best and so did Sasuke, but I didn't think he was ready to face Gaara in front of him. However, he was given the chance to fight and retaliate by assaulting you with my signature jutsu technique. The sound of lightning, Sasuke's scream and the expression of betrayal and pain on his face would never leave him. He was unable to reconcile Sasuke with the other person at the valley. He paused before he could strike me, Naruto said. He did, in fact. It gave me the impression that he had a possibility. He made the decision to leave the leaf. I'm aware that he was struggling, but I never expected him to turn against me. He was establishing relationships and moving past his desire to get even. Naruto's expression was one of a frown. He opted for Kakashi-sensei, his preferred choice. It's something he has to face and accept. It's up to us to make choices, right? Naruto reacted with a moment of silence before questioning how the situation ended. If Naruto had not let his old teammates hurt him, it could have been a way more pleasant experience for him and Sasuke. They had a connection that was still strained, even now. Kurenai and Shikamaru were his assets, so he didn't have to face a losing battle. Orochimaru's unwavering support for Sasuke ensured that he would remain trapped and desperate until Itachi left, regardless of their relationship. It could be that he had reached his breaking point. I feel like I'm putting too much pressure on you, Naruto. I was confident in your ability to communicate with Sasuke and Sakura, but you never altered who you were. Even though you were struggling, you had a different course of action by the time I intervened. I felt a sense of disappointment when you gave up on me, but I don't think it's because you lost your mind. Naruto observed that Kakashi touched his shoulder and felt a torrent of emotions in his eye when he confronted his former teacher. I'm sorry that you were left alone during that experience. I regret not being able to serve as your hero. Naruto's breath was not piercing. It would have been effortless to trim Kakashi into ribbons, but he couldn't do it. Kakashi had always been sincere with him. Don't be anxious about it. You're no longer my sensei. Despite this, you are still my friend. With a nod, Kakashi let go of his burden and put his shoulder to rest. Naruto, I am grateful for your contribution to the story. Kakashi had been resolute in his plan, but he still took time to lend a hand after his disagreement with Team 7. Without a doubt, he had recognized his suffering and offered assistance. He genuinely loved, truly cared. Naruto stated, I have a single thing that is bothering me. Sasuke revealed that you taught him the Chidori and chakra detection due to his risk of flying dangerously, as he told you. Is that factual? Kakashi released his shoulder. Lord Third instructed me to take care of Sasuke and encourage him to be loyal to the Hidden Leaf team after assigning him. I was given the freedom to do as I pleased. I taught Sasuke how to identify chakra and also offered my services to Sakura, demonstrating that I was teaching him in accordance with my own principles rather than following his instructions. Sasuke was given the Chidori to safeguard his fellow fighters, and I made an effort to teach him a life that wasn't focused on seeking revenge to prevent him from using the power that Orochimaru had infected him with. He bowed his head in a serene manner. All right, we are now in this place. Naruto ingested the food by swallowing it up. If you were observing Sasuke, you would observe him. Who was watching me? Sasuke claimed to have been supervised by an ANBU team, but I didn't feel any intrusion. Kakashi held his fist high and retracted it to his pocket. Once, his chakra pulsated. I didn't hear anything. With a sharp eye, Kakashi gazed at Naruto with admiration. During your youth, Lord Third assigned you to an ANBU member's caretaker. I was involved in it. After I left ANBU, another ninja replaced me and they kept watching until you became a Geninja. Naruto's cranium bellowed in response. It was not surprising that Kakashi had felt so close to the ground. It's my understanding that they stopped after I became your sensei. Lord Third may have assigned another protection detail, but I am not aware of the possibility. It's unclear to me if he has done it or not, as I don't have that information. Lord Jiraiya has taken over your throne. It was logical that the Jinchuriki's movements were under surveillance by ninja, but Kabuto's explanation of the third lies caused his bile to settle in his stomach. He would have dismissed the idea as a lie because he was one, but it had only renewed his doubts. Naruto inquired, "Do you have any idea? I may be incarcerated for telling you the truth, but you should take notice. I pray that you won't reveal this to anyone. I possess a knack for keeping secrets." He licked his stomach. "That's who you are," Kakashi declared. With a gentle touch, he polished Naruto's hair with his hand. "I'll give you a cue to sleep," she said. "Lady Tsunade allowed me to speak to you as long as I informed her. Upon your awakening, I'll keep my side of the bargain." Kakashi proceeded towards the entrance and surveyed his shoulder. "Happy birthday, Naruto." Naruto remained in bed with a beaming smile after Kakashi left. After a few minutes, he felt something familiar hovering around him at the window. She said, "Come on over, pervy sage." Jiraiya, as usual, entered the house through the window and let in more glare. He had already adapted by this stage. "You're undoubtedly faithful to the hidden leaf, Naruto," Jiraiya declared. "You've made it through without succumbing to hatred, and the bonds you're carrying are a clear indication of that. I'm not sure who Sarutobi-sensei has chosen to keep watch on you, but I know Tsunade hasn't given him any. I am of the opinion that your ANBU sensor is not susceptible to being bypassed." Jiraiya was able to do it. The only reason he became so good at sensing was that no one could keep his advances from him. Naruto asked if she could ask her to remove the watcher I was watching. "You want her to ask how you found out?" Naruto shook his head. "I'm being closely observed by others as well. The Hokage can quickly reach me thanks to this. Don't let it get to you." Jiraiya can confidently state that he was not excluded by the village for being in the wrong place at the right time. He was grouchy over something that he couldn't control, which would have made him unnecessary to watch. Naruto expressed his satisfaction by stating that "fine" was the only way to proceed, as there was no need for any argument. Jiraiya chuckled. "Are you planning our trip?" His master glared with a smile. He had a strong desire to spend more time with Jiraiya, and it wasn't solely due to his intense training. 3 years was the equivalent of 3 years. "Sensei," Naruto said, "it's a long time. It's sad to hear that I don't have my friends." Jiraiya swung his arms in the air. "The situation is quite alarming, but I wouldn't suggest you come with me unless it was clear that you would do better. Don't be afraid to share your friends with others as they will have gained valuable experience and memories, and you can expect them to come back with a more mature perspective." That was a lovely thing to say, and it alleviated the fear of longing and distance. He was aware that he had people to return to, but they would be unlike him. His certainty of changing was due to the fact he would be 16 upon his return. "I'll be in the village for a few days, so if you've decided on something or just want to talk, that's fine. You are aware of my whereabouts." The door opened with a frown on Tsunade's face. Jiraiya responded to a question by saying, "Is it not true that I will terrorize more vulnerable women?" Smirking was done by Tsunade. "I'll be okay with it. My workload is too great to be in a drunken state with you." Naruto was snared by Jiraiya as he gave him a wink before fleeing the window. Tsunade had gathered with him at his bed, clutching a clipboard to her chest. "Hey, Grandma," Naruto said to his listeners. Surprisingly, Tsunade's smile was unexpected. "Grandma, what happened to Tsunade? Can't I call the Hokage by her name?" Naruto inquired. "I used to refer to your sensei as old man before. I won't permit you to do it, primarily because you're already in a hospital bed." Naruto savored his food. She had a lovely smile on her face. Similar to poison. All right, ma'am. You catch on immediately, Tsunade remarked. She checked her clipboard. How are you holding up? His muscles had started to stiffen, but he had not tried to move around. Tsunade placed a glowing palm on his forehead, and Naruto felt her chakra travel through his chakra system, filling every inch of his body. When the chakra reached his toes, it mixed with his own body. Your system has already been cleansed of the poison, Tsunade declared. I'll allow you to depart, but I suggest you rest before engaging in any intense physical activity. Relaxing will be a positive experience for you. Naruto's expression was one of pure happiness, as he contemplated his next move. Grandma Hokage, I am grateful. Tsunade's eyes were closed as she let out a frustrated sigh. I'm not sure if the poison would penetrate your brain, but that's just one of the ways it might do. But then there's this one. She opened her eyes and made a grimace. I don't think it would have any effect. Naruto's smile widened as he played. You're probably thinking that the poison has already been removed, right? You can't cure stupidity, after all. Nogwish revealed his astonishment and laughter upon hearing Naruto's expression. With the guidance of Tsunade, Jiraiya was able to follow his advice without any issues. Despite the pain she caused, it would be appreciated if she could speak up. She was capable of enduring it without any difficulty. All business was well received by Tsunade, who stated that, you did a good job yesterday. The mission's reminder caused him to look grimacing. I refrained from bringing Sasuke back. You managed to rescue your fellow soldiers and eliminate the Sound Ninja, but at a very fast pace. He smiled with a true expression. Naruto, keep your head up. Your task was accomplished. It wasn't just me, though. Shizune has been a tremendous help to me. That's exactly what I taught her, Tsunade declared. In case you were able to challenge Sasuke with her, it's possible that she had a clone accompanying you. As the team's medic, she risked her life in a fight. Despite this, her gaze exuded a pleasing aura of lightness. She was exceptional. She will benefit greatly from having more experience. Tsunade's expression about Shizune did not evoke feelings of Jiraiya in her eyes, but rather reminded him of Kurenai. Tsunade used her clipboard to tap his head. Sleep, please. You're almost as tall as mine. Naruto's response was muted by his refusal to respond. Upon her return to the village, Tsunade's roughness had softened considerably. She came close to resembling her grandma rather than an old crab with bitter animosity. The Hokage, along with his current master, helped him decipher the advice given to him by Sasuke and Kabuto. It also kept his sadness at bay. Still, it was time for him to get back to reality. After getting up, he made a gate, then another, and eventually reached his bed with ease. The application process was a bit challenging, but aside from some discomfort, he felt just as trustworthy as rain. After Naruto left his room, he noticed Sakura sitting on a nearby bench. Her red dress was clutched by her hands while she hunkered down. She regained her footing and got up, and then she gave him a quick look in the eye. Sakura proclaimed, Naruto. She had red eyes in her green eyes, but she glared with fury and disrespect. The reminder of her anger was an uneasy experience. You've stumbled upon Sasuke, have you? Ah, I did, she said. He escaped from the situation. She shivered, but was calm and composed within a few moments. You were a bit surprised, so I'll leave you hanging. Naruto shook his head in frustration. You're like, huh? It's not going to bring back that bastard. He was completely unaware that Sakura had ever spoken negatively about Sasuke, even to the point of calling him a bastard. She retaliated by striking him in the forest of death, but it was only to soothe him. Are you dating someone else? She blurted out. All right, it really wasn't. She refrained from elaborating, but it was her responsibility, not his. After Sakura wiped her eyes, her familiar face softened into something more delicate when she dropped her hand. The determination was the type that followed someone who had reached a point of indecision and believed that they could do enough. "I'm going to bring him back," Sakura declared. He said, "And that is a promise." He added, "I saw her abilities when she was pushed to the edge and there wasn't any bad blood between us." Soon he was rooting for her. "Good luck," Naruto said. "Thanks to all of you. I'll require it." With her fists clasped in her fingers, Sakura gave him a small, long kiss before walking away. Naruto paused to catch his breath and headed towards the entrance. He thought she would be at fault for not picking up her precious teammate, but she wasn't. Her anger towards Sasuke appeared to be focused solely on him. While walking past Chai's room, he observed him sleeping with his sensor still attached. Shikamaru was positioned outside the room, and his finger was wrapped in bandages. He gazed at it intently. Sitting on the bench with Naruto, he looked away and then slowly waited for him to finish. Naruto inquired, "How are you holding up?" Shikamaru's expression was one that indicated he didn't smile. The question of, "Who is Naruto?" raised his eyebrows. And made Shikamaru frown even more. "I'm not equipped to manage a team." Shikamaru remarked that, "You're smarter than most people I know, and you always come up with crazy ideas. Improvement is not a problem when the adversary is too strong, regardless of my intelligence. I suffered a broken finger, but in comparison to everyone else, that's nothing like the situation. Shino may require several weeks to fully recuperate, but Hinata is now in the stable. Kiba and Akamaru are too injured to walk, Lee is in critical condition due to overusing the gates, causing close contact with his hand, and Chai has recently been stabilized. You were also poisoned in hell." The sight of the bags around Shikamaru's eyes caused Naruto to appear older than 13. "In the absence of reinforcements and rescue, both you and Shizune, we would all be dead. I should have done more." He expressed his dissatisfaction with the way his friend was being viewed. Shikamaru was the source of motivation and support for him during his time of hardship. Assuming he was suffering, it wasn't too late for him to return the favor. Naruto inquired, "What was your purpose?" Through his nose, Shikamaru breathed. "Find Sasuke and annihilate the sound jam hole with him. You were the leader of the sound ninja, so we didn't get Sasuke. By keeping the ball out of the way and giving your team a fighting chance, you were able to quickly get the job done. I'm not confident that anyone else would take those risks in your position." Shikamaru wore his eyes shut. "If I had more strength, I wouldn't have been required to isolate the enemy. If my plan was better, I wouldn't have needed any extra assistance." Naruto smirked. "If you're going to enter the workforce, your own well-being is at stake, so stop worrying and build up your strength. Don't allow someone else to ruin a job you could do in your sleep. As for your response, I'm here." He stood up until he saw Shikamaru's eyes wide open and was shocked. His chest was shaking from his ranting. To be a better leader, one must train until they drop out. It's within my capabilities to carry out the task. It's far superior to being a coward. That's the belief in me. Shikamaru expressed his laughter through the joke. It was so infectious that Naruto became involved in it. He had provided Shikamaru with the motivation he required. His heart was filled with happiness as a result. "It's funny," Shikamaru remarked. "My father gnawed on me because he was too scared to lead when lives are in danger. Your encouragement has made it clear that I need to work on building my strength." He smiled, and it conveyed his thanks and confidence. "Thanks, Naruto. Thank you very much." Naruto greeted Shikamaru with a radiant smile and applauded him. Friends have a tendency to be like that. Together, they exited the hospital. Shikamaru confronted him with his fist raised. "We'll let you know if you ever make the trip, shall we?" Following their fist fight, they parted ways. After arriving at his apartment, Naruto breathed deeply and then let it out. He examined his home sensor, attempting to spot any hidden chakra signs that were hiding him. He expected to find nothing, but he didn't. He was either a skilled concealer or there was no one to look after him, and his behavior suggested paranoia. The nine-tailed fox's face shone with a frown as he laughed, keeping his thoughts to himself. What is your objective? Whatever reason you may feel, paranoia may be the first thing you think about. Naruto was aware of the backhanded compliment, but it appeared as though the nine-tails were not being unkind for no apparent reason. Why should I care if Kakashi-sensei and Master Jiraiya are unaware of my whereabouts? I am, but he is not going to inform me. How do you think I should deal with this situation? He felt that the nine-tails' blatant hatred and contempt towards him were inflicted upon him by their red eyes. If you are content with your confinement, there is nothing to live in. The presence of an unseen ANBU detail would have been enough to make him feel at ease. After all, he was the nine-tails container. Kakashi had to reveal the truth to him at great risk, and Sasuke was not informed about his watchers. He had no knowledge when he was younger that the reason for everyone's hatred towards him was because of his own childhood trauma. The reason for Mizuki's explanation was unclear to him. He had no knowledge of his clan when he was a genin. Shikamaru gifted him the book that detailed his clan's history, and Karen provided evidence that his family still existed, despite his complacency. Despite his bravery as a chunin and risking his life for the village, he was still not informed by the third about his parents. Due to his young age or lack of readiness to learn, Hiruzen Sarutobi had not disclosed anything to him. Naruto was obligated to reveal all information to the former Hokage when he concealed his own secrets. Was there a distinction between secrets and disrespect? Although the thought didn't seem appropriate, it had surfaced and become embedded in him. I have no other option but to obtain this information, and if I am caught, I will be sent to prison. What is the significance of saying to the nine-tails, "Don't let them take you," as he stated? He may have been more proficient than he was at the time, but his initial break-in to the Hokage's office resulted in him being caught. Despite his malicious response, why did he bother to do the nine-tails' bidding? If you decide to become their little weapon and reject what is rightfully yours, I won't be able to assist you. Naruto was frightened by the nine-tails. I'm not concerned if I can use your power again since you stopped me from using it when I needed it the most. With a smile on their faces, the nine-tails contorted in rows of massive fangs. Naruto, you are not entitled to my power. The reason I am bound to you is that individuals who believed they were good people took away my freedom and allowed their fear of me to serve as a delusion. The village is teeming with hypocrisy, and they will deceive you by pretending to have your best interests in mind. Nevertheless, you will remain loyal to the dishonest and avoid me since I spoke the truth. Although it may seem unfair, he was not responsible for the nine-tailed fox's actions. Nevertheless, the nine-tails didn't compensate him in any way, which resulted in a significant amount of weight for what he decided to share. The nine-tails' intentions, aside from being released from its cage, were unknown to him, but he concluded that its words were reasonable. Suppose the nine-tails were mistaken, what would be the outcome? You may find value in the limited privacy you have. Nonetheless, it will never be enough. The fox's imprisonment did not prevent Naruto from having a lasting impact on the story. It was not about the nine-tails, Sasuke, Kabuto, or anyone else. It was centered around him, and it had always been so. He had the option to allow the third to keep his secrets and maintain a sense of trust among the village's elite. If he were to attempt to find the truth himself and visit the Hokage's office, his career and reputation would be destroyed. Is it wise for him to take a chance and look for the truth, or would he choose to live in complete ignorance? What was his next move? He fought against the decision until late in the night and his legs were sore from their constant movement. Nevertheless, it had been successful, and he was aware of his obligation. I'm prepared. Is it the right time to take what's on my plate? The Hokage administration complex was visible from Naruto's elevated position. The drive to learn about his parents and the village's past was too strong for him to ignore. Could he not manage to leave alone? With a curvy smile, unable to shake his familiar orange tracksuit-like weight. It served as a reminder of his past relationships with Kurenai, and Naruto's determination and perseverance were necessary to overcome this. Additionally, he had the ability to enter wearing bright neon attire and successfully complete his task. He stooped to safety and entered the closest alley to the complex, using the wall as a barrier. Naruto was frightened by the presence of a ninja, and he waited for him to exit before jumping over the wall. He made a sudden landing, running towards the rear entrance of the complex and gently closing the door behind him. He was in. Complete the first step. Naruto departed down the administrative branch's corridors in the complex. The presence of the Hokage did not affect the security arrangements within the complex, as only a few guards were present. Without any prior communication, the guards were obliterated, and it was effortless to locate and reach the records department. He came to a stop in front of the department's entrance, with his hand hovering over the door handle. There was no way to escape once he had opened the door. The absence of remorse could not be ignored, either. The door was unlocked by Naruto after he breathed his last. He couldn't find any traps or the luminous glow of an activated seal. Although it was a bit abrupt, it worked in his favor. Naruto opened the door and sifted through numerous cabinets for his files. Upon finding it, he picked up a scroll that bore his name. The absence of seals was confirmed, but 2 men were able to enter the room. Naruto used a gentle hiss to press against the cabinet and used Genjutsu to conceal himself from sight, smell, touch, and hearing with his thumb. The guards scanned the room with wincing eyes, their feet moving silently. As they approached, he maintained his breathing until it was as still as a statue. They walked past the other rows and entered the cabinet that held his file, as if they were drawn to it. The first guard examined the cabinets, while the second guard observed his fellow guard's back. There has been no action taken. The alarm was faulty and caused by something. It's possible that the alarm was a mechanical failure, as it could potentially misdirect sensors. It's time to stop complaining about it. The other guard said, "Let me check." They shifted their focus. Naruto's quick thinking led him to create 2 hand seals before the guard could retrieve a scroll that was not in his possession. The room was filled with a loud bang. As the guard reached for his kunai holster, he inquired, "Do you hear that?" "Yeah." They departed to uncover an inaudible noise. There is no tangible evidence to support this. Naruto breathed another sigh of relief as he quickly unwrapped the scroll. It would be necessary for him to read what he could before they came back. His detailed information was arranged in a chronological manner, making it easier for him to find what he needed. He viewed his academic records, mission after action reports, and psychological profiles. Afterward, his eyes widened. The guards were still not present. Although he was given a protection detail, there were many red stamps that erased everything else. The seals encircling the scroll were too perilous to be seen with his sensor, as they only showed the words, "Hokage's eyes only." He was so close, yet so far away that it's difficult to comprehend. Despite having only confirmation of his existing knowledge, the truth he craved was within reach. Maybe it was time to go home and end the day. "Fear not," the Nine-Tails warned. His wistfulness transformed into earnestness. "The office of the Hokage is under my surveillance. Will you be content if I can't find anything?" Naruto inserted the scroll into the cabinet and closed it by rolling up. After dispelling the Genjutsu, he waited for the guards to enter the room and then exited the records department. He was aware of the route to the Hokage's office as bright as the daytime sun and used all his experience as a prankster to avoid any patrolling ninja. He entered the room with a relaxed attitude, not displaying any signs of nervousness now that he was fully committed to his task. The Hokage's desk was illuminated by the moonlight that entered through the glass windows, creating an eerily warm atmosphere. Being alone in the dark room was a surreal and creepy experience. His sudden realization arose from his repeated violations of the law, and his actions contradicted all the teachings he had received. His resolve grew stronger over time. Once he achieved the desired outcome, a person would abandon their vehicle. Naruto climbed down the hall, shutting his eyes and using his sensor to guide him. The desk had 6 drawers, with 3 located side by side on the chair. After sealing 5 of them, he opened the last one and came across a sake bottle with 2 saucers. Classic Tsunade. Naruto shook his head and noticed an indent in the drawer's surface, which was only visible by his location and the moonlight. The bottle and saucers were carefully removed before he could feel the groove that appeared from the indent. He took some time to get over it, but when the wooden panel was lifted, he heard a slight crack, which revealed several scrolls hidden beneath. Naruto ingested the food. The records room had 2 guards who had left and appeared to be leaving the complex, with no other guard in attendance. He cautiously moved forward, grasping one of the scrolls that revealed S-rank mission assignments. Naruto returned it inside. With the time he had left, there were no other scrolls that were worth looking at. He retrieved his teeth and took hold of the last scroll after seeing his name on it. He tossed it out and was inundated with those profane red words. Hokage's eyes only was becoming his least favored line, and Naruto managed to contain the tears of frustration that were about to seep through his eyes. The idea appeared to be purely verbal, which made some sense. It was highly valuable and could have significant implications for him, but it didn't make his life more straightforward. Why did his parents' names have such a strong hold on him? The Nine-Tails' laughter wasn't enough, but it could entertain itself until the cows came back home. He would be answered by someone, and when he became a Chunin, no one could refuse him anything. Nevertheless, he continued, returning to the information retrieved from his previous journey. The file's implication caused him to experience sweaty hands as he read it. The objective of Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox, who is the object of observation/protection assigned to Uzumaki, Naruto, for the mission. Until the end of the Ninja Academy, the ANBU protection squad will be taken over by a sensei or other means as determined by the Hokage presiding over the mission. Ninja on assignment. Shark, ocelot, vulture, tilapia. A note indicated that tilapia had taken the place of an ANBU and given it the code name Wolf. The ANBU team was given payment for an A-rank mission every month, as indicated by a red stamp that read, concluded, and the mission is now completed. He muttered as he read the next section. Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox was sent on a mission as part of an observation/loyalty mission with the subject being Uzumaki, Naruto. The danger of flying is a concern. Method of operation: track the thought process of the target. Ensure that target remains committed to the village. The length of time for which the mission will last is uncertain. The ninja on assignment, Kurinai. What is the goal attained? Presently, the scroll slithers against the ground. Naruto surveyed his hands, with bile covering his throat and igniting it. His heart raced against his chest and his jaw trembled. It was not possible for him to be a no. Is it not true? Is it not true? Naruto read the scroll again, and he was made to laugh as the word loyalty was used. The intense emotions that he had once known as love turned black, much like the remains of a dead body. He was unable to hold his breath. Every interaction between them, from their last date to their first meeting, left him with a mixed mind. It was Kurinai's rejection that caused him to feel more deeply and harshly rejected, now that he knew what had happened. According to the Nine-Tailed Fox, the woman who created the elaborate ruse is truly a master of illusions, she said. How can this be explained? It was fitting that she was picked to confine you to your cage. He cried uncontrollably after struggling to contain the tears that had left him feeling frustrated, but now he was filled with sorrow, agony, betrayal, and intense anger. Despite the circumstances, no tears were shed. He believed he knew Kurenai, but it was all a lie created by her as she turned him into the center of his universe. The scroll was rolled up and returned with him, who then put it back together. He smoothed out the edges of the scrolls and moved the panel over. The sake bottles and its saucers were stacked on top by him. He shut the drawer and stood up. As a child, he had no interest in being Hokage and was left without any understanding of the true meaning of this role. Naruto's face was now a depressed mask, similar to when he had grown tired of his own team members. Clarity had taken precedence over all other abilities, as he was no longer blind. "You've come to the realization," said the Nine Tails. It gave him his space, which was a good thing. The man he had been thinking of as a grandfather was the one who convinced his mother to keep him attached to the hidden leaf. The answer is yes. Hiruzen Sarutobi was no longer his grandfather. He would never put his trust in the old liar again. Kurenai? I'm about to pay her a visit. His obligation was to depart, and he would do so with the knowledge that came with being a ninja. While on the mission, he would not be able to complete his objective due to sentiment. It was only a matter of time before he achieved his desired goal. He swam through the corridors of the complex like a ghostly entity, and no one could detect him. Naruto left the scene to approach the moon and vanished, splitting into 4 parts. The individual would return home to pack up any belongings they needed. A different person would visit the Nara household and wait to inform them of his plan. The next person to arrive is Jiraiya. He would confront Kurenai as well. Her apartment, the waterfall, and other places were off-limits to her. It was a cruel turn of events for her to be able to escape him. The fact that he knew she had done this to him and couldn't ask her why was such a joke. Despite the apparent sincerity of her feelings, her betrayal only made matters worse. I didn't care if she came back and told him the same lie to him again. He could cope with his tangled emotions when he was far away from this place. It was fitting that his next stop was the 4th Hokage's head, as Minato Namikaze had been the one who initiated everything when he had sealed the Nine Tails inside him. Was he truly confident in his ability to handle the burden of hurting, deceiving, and losing hope? How could a mere infant with stranded families be so capable of doing such things? It had caused him immense pain and difficulty, but there was no reason for feeling angry about the 4th Industrial War. He was destined to be committed to fighting in the Shinigami's stomach for the rest of his life. He widened his eyes. Jiraiya had come here. He was required to take a test with his master to determine if he met his trusting standards. He wanted to give Jiraiya a chance, as he was tired of hurting others with his heart. Jiraiya inquired, "What's the problem?" The worry in his voice seemed to be genuine, but faking emotions to that extent must have been effortless for a skilled spy. "Who are my parents?" Naruto asked, with a keen interest in whether he would be honest or deceived. Tension was palpable between them as the wind whipped through their clothes and feet, creating a tense moment. "I acknowledge," Jiraiya declared. "I've been acquainted with your parents for a long time, and I never expected to reveal their identities." He relaxed, but Naruto felt he was telling the truth. "What's the reason for me to inquire?" he expressed, and his question was formed until he could finally ask it. "Sarutobi consistently informed me about things when I was older, but he couldn't be the only one to provide me with that information." Naruto paused, seeking the appropriate way to express himself. "It's a big secret, but can you tell me their names?" Jiraiya asked him, looking down at his cold eyes and listless frown. "It's possible that you could safely access that secret, but only if you possess the necessary fortitude to handle the responsibility of accepting it. If you come with me, then I'll give you a rough estimate of 3 years, Jiraiya replied. It was a surprising and emotionally rejuvenating truth to hear. Naruto's body disintegrated as he exhaled, causing some of the tension in his system to dissolve. He had a target in sight, and he was confident that Jiraiya would reveal the truth when the moment came. "Senegade, I want to convey my sincere thanks for being honest with you. It's time to depart from here." Jiraiya exhibited a raised eyebrow. "Are you able to make it?" He acknowledged the fact that he missed his friends, but was unable to remain in the same village as Sarutobi or Kurenai when the feeling of betrayal was still present. A slow nod was given by his master. "Inform me when you've gathered your belongings." A clone of Naruto joined them on the monument, carrying a set of scrolls that contained everything he needed. He placed them in his jacket and allowed the clone to disperse. He opted to create another clone and sent it to Ichiraku Ramen. "I'm prepared," Naruto declared. Jiraiya's expression was one that indicated he didn't want to be seen. "After we exit the country, I plan to send Tsunade a messenger toad." He looked into Naruto's eyes. "I'm not sure what swayed your opinion, but if you ever wanted to talk, I would be open to it, and anything you say will be kept confidential." Naruto tapped his eye and let out a murky gasp of air. "Thanks, sensei." He observed the numerous lights, buildings, and trees in the village that he lived in. Despite everything, he would still miss it because it had been his home and lacked any other experience. He had no intention of letting go of it. Sarutobi's victory was not favored by him. Jiraiya vanished in a swirl of leaves and with stoic emotion, Naruto pursued his master. He wouldn't be visible until he was prepared to return, and they both left the village hidden in the leaves together. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more content. Support the original author by clicking their profile link in the pinned comment of the first video of this series. They deserve the love. Want early access and exclusive content? Join my Patreon community, link below. Your support fuels these videos. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay entertained, stay safe.